of transparency, broadly, accountability, and good governance in Nigeria, and to be able to produce a document that would be useful to the Nigerian government and non-state actors in shaping the activities that are related to accountability, good governance, as well as transparency in Nigeria. Slide, please. So the purpose of the research was to produce a marker, kind of an indicative document for the new Nigerian government, which means we are still on time in consideration of the fact that a new government just came on board on May 29, 2023. We still have a long way to go on addressing issues of transparency, accountability, and good governance in Nigeria. And then we have the research objectives. First, we wanted to ascertain the achievements made by the civil society in the broad fields that have been mentioned. That is transparency, accountability, and good governance. We wanted to determine the applicable efforts, for preserving and improving the efforts of the achievements made by civil society, and then identify the gaps in advocacy and agitation by civil society in Nigeria. Essentially, the research was based on a desk review, and then we also had a fieldwork component that entails interviewing members of the joint body cohort. So I worked with the team, the technical team at the BudgIT Foundation to ensure that we're able to deliver in terms of the purpose and the specific objectives. Then, before we went to the field, we did a review of the key reforms that have been undertaken by the Nigerian government in the last decade, the last 10 years. We're looking at issues of open government, anti-corruption, asset recovery, electoral integrity, whistleblowing, fiscal transparency, extractive transparency, judicial transparency, freedom of information access, open contracting and procurement, income and asset disclosure, gender equality, and social inclusion, that is JESI, as well as service delivery. Slide, please. And then from the field work, we have summarized the evidence. Please move on. We have summarized the evidence. Move on, you see it. The first is that there have been behavioral changes amongst government officials as a result of the efforts, the interventions by civil society organizations. And the interventions including policy, public interest litigation, policy advocacy, policy advisories, and influential engagement. So that is a plus for the civil society in Nigeria. 2, CSOs played unique roles in the enactment of the Freedom of Information Act, that is 2011 Freedom of Information Act. And this has helped to redefine the rules of engagement so that it will be possible for the citizens to have access to information. And from the fieldwork, stakeholders agreed, they were unanimous, to the effect that it is possible to have access to government information, provided it does not, provided you have to consider information that is of national interest and some other security-related information. Therefore, we noted that the context of request, the context of the information that is being requested is very, very important. The third evidence is that empowering citizens with government information will position them to serve as watchdogs to government activities, to government officials. And the stakeholders identified segments of citizens, and some in the knowledge space, like researchers, public opinion formation space, like columnists, and then writers. But in summary, it was discovered, or it was agreed, that every citizen, regardless of your status, every citizen should have access to government information. Another evidence pertains to the domains of government that have benefited from the interventions by civil societies in the area of transparency, in terms of accountability and good governance. And stakeholders were unanimous that federal government, particularly the executive branch and the judicial branch, that they have benefited, and to a large extent, we can say that we are experiencing transparency in the two branches of government. And stakeholders went ahead to suggest that there is no transparency in the legislative branch of government. And there is really no accountability at the state and local government levels. And sadly, that the local governments are under the direct control of the state government. So that is a gap that has been identified, and then a lot of work needs to be done in that area to ensure that the areas that we are not experiencing much transparency and accountability, then we'll start having a change. Number 5, through CSO's advocacy, public officers are being compelled to release more information that is required. Policy advocacy by CSOs led to the adoption of the Bureau of Public Procurement as part of the legal framework established by the subnational governments. Number 6 relates to the purpose of civil society and accountability. That is the purpose of CSOs, that space that is being occupied by citizens, by media activists, the gap between the state and market, this civil society, requires a lot of accountability. And the purpose of their engagement is accountability. That is to raise voices as active citizens for the promotion of accountability. CSOs have supported several public institutions to attain accountability, such as the standard electoral processes by the Independent National Electoral Commission, as well as the improved operations of the police, the judiciary, and the Bureau of Public Procurement. So CSOs have done a lot in that regard. Number 7, we're also trying to look at the extent to which CSOs have been able to suggest alternative accountability programs. And then we look at what CSOs have done in terms of asking, seeking for the reduction in the cost of governance, such as the advocacy for a unicameral legislature. And to do that would require the alteration of the fundamental laws of the land, that is the Nigerian Constitution. Number 8, we're looking at how public institutions are dealing with the future impacts of their action. And particularly, based on our conversation with the Header Resource Center, we saw what they did with the Office of the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice of the Federation at the ECOWAS Court. And then the purpose was to address the failure of the Attorney General to hold accountable the multinational oil corporations that are flaring gas in the oil-producing Niger Delta area. When you see the main report, you have more of such evidence. Number 9, the civil society in Nigeria has contributed immensely to the technology-driven governance. That is the digitalization of governance. And the major purpose, or one of the objectives of digitalizing government, is to ensure the interactions between human beings. When humans are not seen face to face, you discover that there will be reduction in corruption. For example, BudgIT Foundation has succeeded in pushing governments to bring the budget operations to some measure of digitalization and engagement in the social media. Then number 10, the challenges highlighted by the interview stakeholders include financial and human resources, that the CSOs are challenged with financial resources, they are challenged with manpower, inadequate manpower. The time lag on some cases in the court is also a consideration. Then women inclusion in governance, to the extent that we need to have more women in governance. Then constituency projects, a lot of work needs to be done in that area. And then local government autonomy is another consideration. Number 11, the risk involved in CSO efforts were also highlighted by the stakeholders. We are looking at the eroded civil liberties, impunity in public service, such as the rigging of the electoral process was highlighted, attacks, physical attacks, legal attacks, media attacks. There are some of the risks that CSOs are facing. Threats to the organization's leadership, their work, their existence, as well as the lives of its staff. And then the recommendations. Number one is CSO should leverage existing international procedures and policy, such as the OGP initiative, to avert some of the risk associated with advocacy. That would require more work in terms of the co-creation model of the open government partnership. Number 2, the civil society should further engage by tracking expenditures in the higher or tertiary education sector. It's a gray area that will require work, serious work for CSOs. 3, the civil society should also intervene in the management of irregular migration, including how Nigerian citizens who are in search of greener pastures are faring abroad. In sum, CSOs need to do a lot of work on this Japa syndrome. Number 4 is in the area of how to empower talented young people, and then looking at the possibility of exporting the talents of young Nigerians to the world. CSOs need to do a lot of work. Number 5, something should also be done concerning the issue of debt transparency. This will also help to avert borrowing away the future of the country. 6, another recommendation, CSOs should work towards setting up online platforms for reporting, data collection, a lot of things, and also cut a lot of expenses, thereby reducing governance cost. 7, should focus on environmental conservation, infrastructural development, and rural development. We need to care for the environment. More work needs to be done in that area. Then, the positive transparency practices occurring at the federal level, e.g. publishing of budget details, should be replicated by all actors at the subnational level. And this should be diffused further to the local government levels. 9, inclusive budgeting. should be encouraged for adoption by all states and local government, inclusive budgeting. And this will help to encourage the judicious use of resources. 10, the technology deployed for improvements in access to information and transparency in the electoral processes should be replicated in the conduct of local government elections across the country. I think the news that the local government elections will now be conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission. That one will help to address that issue. If the act is assented to by Mr. President, if it becomes a law. And then, the next slide, please. I think the recommendations on preservation and scaling up, how to preserve what CSOs have done and how to scale up. We're looking at the scope of interventions by members of the joint body cohort, and then the stakeholders were looking at the geographical zones that have been covered to the extent that they need to extend their work throughout the zones. I think that should be considered, and that one would amount to at least covering the activities related to transparency, accountability, and good governance in 24 states of the Federation. So the members of the joint body cohort, they need to scale up in that area. Then engaging more with states and local governments would help to unearth how about 52% of the Federation accounts, how the fund is being utilized at the local government level and then at the state level. So there should be more engagement with the executive arm of government at the local government level and then at the state level. 3, scaling up and preserving the progress made would hinge on favorable operational environment for civil society, including support for their actions. The major support would be from development partners who value and understand the enormity of the work that the civil society does and also the implications of such work. So if we're able to take this work, raise the voice of this work, the findings to development partners, it will help. Number 4, there is a need for proper coordination and interfacing as a cohort. The cohort needs to be having regular meetings, group presentations such as they did at the OGP meeting in Estonia, held in Estonia last year. The joint body cohort should coordinate and work together towards sharing of knowledge and ensure that each organization and everyone that they are working together. So this can be signposted by what we are going to be seeing outside at the civil society fair, the exhibition. See what they are doing, and then be looking at areas of common interest where they can collaborate, where they can work together. Then number 6, there should be opportunities for engagement with the National Assembly and state houses of assembly on developing frameworks for needs assessment before budget preparation and formulation, as well as constituency projects. The stakeholders recommended this, not having it, bearing in mind that the funders of this project do not support direct lobbying, but CSO should devise innovative ways to be able to intervene in what the National Assembly is doing, what the State House of Assembly are doing in terms of budget presentation, in terms of having a framework that would ensure that the budget is reflecting the needs of the of the citizens. Then finally, the final slide, I think. No, go back. This one is on, no, there's another one. Okay, on how to mitigate the risk. The identifiable risk can be mitigated by increasing the consciousness of international partners to deploy diplomatic influence to support what the CSOs are doing in dealing with the numerous risks to their work and existence. 2, the valid response to insecurities to do security assessment in the course of project implementation. There should be legal protection for civil society actors and their rights. Number 3 is to ensure that the law works for everyone. That is rule of law, not rule of man. The internet should be made safe for CSOs and their actors. Finally, there is a need for security measures for CSOs, activists, and personnel who are always on the front line in the course of their propagation of transparency, accountability, and good governance. This is a summary of what we have done. I'm sure when you get the report, you'll be able to get more details. Thank you very much.
All right. Please, can we give a round of applause to Dr. Oscar E., who has given us a very good explanation and the revelation from the research document that was done. So while he was speaking, we had some distinguished guests come into the hall. And while I was also introducing our distinguished guest earlier on, I happened to miss some names, and we'll start from there. We have Sulaiman Haruna, who is the Deputy Director, Head of Press, to the Honorable Minister for Information and National Orientation. Please, a round of applause for him. While we also at that, we had our support, our backbone. You know, when we started, we said a particular foundation has been giving us support for this work, and that's a Makato Foundation. Please help me welcome Dr. Koli Shetima. A round of applause for him. Also, we were so honored to also have the distinguished Minister for Budget in our midst this morning. We have, I don't know if am I qualified to call his name? All right. All right, sir. So we have Honorable Minister for Budget and National Planning, Dr. Bagudu, in our midst this morning. Please, a round of applause for him. All right. Also, without wasting any of our time, we'll be going. We also had, please forgive me, we also have, because I'm always very particular about gender representation, we also have Risola Abiola also working in the hall when we were doing that. Please, a round of applause for her as well. Thank you very much. I wasn't going to forget you, please. All right. Without wasting so much of our time, we have Adiza Bala Usman, who is the Special Advisor to the President on Policy Coordination, who will be giving us our keynote address section this morning. Please, a round of applause for her.
I need the two. The Honorable Minister, my elder brother, Honorable Minister, Budget and Economic Planning, His Excellency Senator Atiku Bagudu, the representative of the Honorable Minister of National Information and National Orientation, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I would like to start my presentation by appreciating BudgIT Foundation for the kind invitation to this event. More than ever before, our country needs conversation around good governance, social accountability, and transparency. This is a clear mark of leadership between the people and their government. It is dogged by significant distrust and mistrust across the years. Every hand must therefore be put on deck to restore the necessary confidence that must exist between the electorate and those whom they elect to govern them. And events like this promote such opportunities. BudgIT has remained a champion for these ideals over the past decade, and I think this country owes the organization and accountability on the front burner. Since its inauguration last May, His Excellency President Bola Tinubu has consistently expressed his determination to this front, thereby building the capacity of citizens who are the owners of the country. I therefore extend my appreciation once again to BudgIT and other organizers of this event for providing such a platform for dialogue and collaboration on the crucial theme of reforming governance to enhance social accountability. The enthronement of a healthy, workable, and viral society is the ultimate success of any government. This much is enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, 1999 Constitution as amended. The import of government is the need for citizens to have a healthy and functional society without which no nation can develop or attain its potential. Nigeria has found itself at this juncture of unrealized potential and stunted growth over the years, and this should tell us that there are certain disconnects that we must quickly fix. But first, how did we arrive here? Over the years, sustainable governments in Nigeria have been threatened by clientelism and the capture of state apparatus by a few. These few have made the use of public office for private gain a state policy. This has undermined the foundation of our public structures and has created a fractured society where the rule of law and established processes are subjected to the interplay of conspiratorial manipulations. The government's public delivery agenda has become routinely compromised, thereby weakening the bureaucracy with people subjecting the system to their whims for personal gains, distorting processes, hampering service delivery, and altering laid-down procedures to suit predetermined goals. The impact of this distortion of public service delivery processes have overwhelmed the system so much that bold actions and strong political will urgently be required to strengthen public service for effective delivery and performance. And what other way can we achieve this than by strengthening government performance through reforms and forming of strategic alliances and partnership with social accountability entrepreneurs and ultimately every Nigerian citizen? Now, as we speak about public service delivery, we need to recognize areas of public service reform which has been done several times over the years. In fact, our country has consistently engaged in overhauling its public service mechanism through various reforms that have been carried out to strengthen the performance and capacity of governance. For instance, in 1998 civil service reforms, it has addressed many fundamental principles of integrating the people who are ordinarily supposed to be the consumers of public goods and the government who are the drivers of the seat of national affairs. These reforms offer suggestions on the structure of civil service, its professionalism, and the enforcement of public accountability. But these reforms, when carried out, there have been several defects where have been identified over the years in the procedural delivery system of our government, which has impeded national growth. Some of these include undue importance accorded to generalist professionals among public officers and the nonchalant attitude of civil servants towards their duties. In resolving this reform, efforts have been recommended to include some of the following: adoption of a uniform structure for the public service throughout the Federation, harmonization of power with responsibility, expansion of power of internal audit units, complemented by audit alarm systems, and the rationalization of promotion criteria for public officers. And yet, we haven't made the amount of progress that we feel we should have attained at this stage. The situation is the same across the national economy. We've noted that budgets over the years were seen to have been misappropriated and manipulated for certain gains. The petroleum subsidy, which was instituted to provide comfort for the people of Nigeria, has been subjected to selfish mismanagement by a privileged few, and just in the same way, the foreign exchange scheme became a cesspit of to get to a new phase where national resources will work for the interest of the larger members of the society. where citizens play frontal roles in monitoring, accounting, and evaluating public resources. How do we attain a new phase of social accountability, where citizens-led actions play valuable roles in holding public office and service providers to account for the usage of national resources? This is not to say that Nigeria has totally lacked innovative citizen-led actions that engender transformation. Civil society organizations have led actions from the 1980s to date, where they've confronted anti-people economic measures, they've fought military incursions in politics to a standstill until the return of the civil rule in 1999. CSOs have further contributed to make the best of the liberal public service and the public sphere and the democracy, guaranteeing to score major wins in the civic space. One of the significant victories is the Freedom of Information Act 2001, which redefined the concept of access to information by the Nigerian citizens and the disarmed public sector of its penchant for opacity. It also includes advocacy that led to the adoption of the federal procurement framework superintended by the Bureau of Public Procurement and at the subnational level, as well as the constant reform and the review of the Electoral Act, which guided the operations of the Independent Electoral Commission as well. Other areas where the intervention of CSOs have brought significant and positive action in the past 2 decades also include the reform of the criminal justice system. Reading through the executive summary of the civil society efforts in transparency, accountability, and good governance through the project called Joint Body Cohort, one cannot but express pride and gratitude to our CSOs for keeping government on its toes and activating citizenship at every time. Here we must therefore remember the efforts of organizations like the Human Rights and Environmental Development Agenda, the Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria, and many other such advocacy groups or institutions who have instituted court actions and have contributed to the increase of transparency in the executive arms of government. Although Joint Body Cohort reports indicates that much still desires to be done about improving transparency at the legislature as well as the subnational levels, it is safe to conclude that CSOs have done a good job of facilitating citizenship and enhancing free speech. However, I must state that we still have a challenge that is driven by the quantum of institutional patriotism and national interest agenda of pretender social accountability entrepreneurs. Like traditional and social media promoters, many of such agendas are driven by personal and partisan interests. Many social accountability entrepreneurs whose contributions are vital to a new direction in the overall interest of the country are also not immune from the weak moral, ethical, and promotion of self-agenda that have weakened the public pillars upon which our country operates today. We are now at the stage where leaders of Nigeria must pick up the gauntlet and take the very difficult decision that can move our country forward. I do not need to remind us of the 2 most difficult yet important decisions that have been taken by our president to sanitize the Nigerian economy since he assumed office. With the removal of the fuel subsidy, we've started to see significant improvement in the revenues of government and increased international confidence in the Nigerian economy. The floating of the foreign exchange has also drawn applause from economists as we await the translation of dividends in the everyday lives of Nigerians. But the president is not stopping at that. He has committed himself to delivering on the 8 priorities from which Nigerians will soon begin to see and feel significant improvements in their lives. For emphasis, these 8 priority areas are 1, reforming the economy to deliver sustained and inclusive growth. 2, strengthening national security for peace and prosperity. Number 3, boosting agriculture to achieve food security. 4, unlocking energy and natural resources for sustainable development. 5, enhancing infrastructure and transportation as enablers of growth. 6, refocusing education, health, social investment as essential pillars of development. 7, accelerating diversification through industrialization, digitization, creative arts, manufacturing, and innovation. And the 8th is improving governance for effective service delivery. We've noted that priorities 1, 2, and 8 are recognized as the super priorities because they provide an enabling environment for all the other priorities to function effectively. In furtherance to that, and to show his seriousness to deliver, Mr. President had signed a performance bond with the 35 ministers along the lines of the priorities with which he had detailed are key for delivery to the citizens. The President did this at a government retreat in November 2003, where the cabinet were introduced to the process and procedures of government. The President further set up the Office of the Special Advisor on Policy and Coordination and further reinvigorated the Central Delivery and Coordination Unit for effective monitoring of performance of ministers, departments, and agencies of government. I assure you that the President is giving every support to the process to ensure that critical outcomes that affect the life of citizens are contained within the nucleus of the 8 priority agendas. Just last week, my team and I held a retreat with over 140 government officials for assessment of ministers. This seeks to detail the delivery chain and the key aspects of monitoring that will be encountered. And as we've said in several fora, the delivery unit is to foster collaboration and enhance coordination among ministries beyond just assessing their performance. Mr. President further insists that there needs to be a first-hand participation of Nigerians in the verification of the delivery program and projects of government. Very shortly, we will be relaunching the Citizen Tracker, which will avail Nigerians across the country to track and monitor the list of priority programs and projects of the government and their status, and you can report otherwise. These reports will be viewed by the Central Delivery and Coordination Unit, and even importantly, Mr. President will have a dashboard where he will be able to see and track the progress of implementation of his priority programs. As the British philosopher has mentioned, Jeremy Bentham, almost 3 centuries ago, secrecy being an instrument of conspiracy ought never to be the system of regular government. President Tinubu is determined to make Nigeria work for Nigerians, but it doesn't end with that. He's committed to giving Nigeria's voice and empowering them to participate in the governance of their country. This unique opportunity presented to Nigeria is the gospel that we enjoin BudgIT and its partners across the country to help us spread. The CDCU, which I'm privileged to head, covers your support in this all-important mission. The country belongs to all of us, and we must do our best to contribute our quota to its development. Even if all we do is exercise citizenship's right of an opinion, I think it's important for us to recognize that role as citizens. On that note, I would like to thank you all for coming, and once again, thank BudgIT for organizing such an event. Thank you all for listening, and God bless.
Can we a round of applause? Thank you very much. That was very concise, and it's also addressed a lot of things that the researcher earlier on also told us about the development and what we intend to see in the civil society space. And very quickly, I'll be calling on some few people who also walked in while we had that keynote speech ongoing. We have Honorable Sonny Lawal, who is the Deputy House Committee Chairman on Civil Society Development. Please, a round of applause for him, sir. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. I'll be handing over the microphone to our country director, Mr. Gabriel Okewo, to do the honors on the next line of the agenda. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Ian. I think what we want to do now is to launch the reports. Can I have ushers? Can you help me get this table closed here? And to help us do that will be the Honorable Minister for Budgets and Economic Planning. I need help. Someone to join me. Let's bring this to the center. Careful. Okay. So the Honorable Minister will come, I believe. Thankfully, you walk in during the presentation of the report, so you can say a few words, and then we invite other joint body courts leads and other dignitaries that we have on this side table to also join. Thank you very much.
all, Honorable Member of the House of Representatives and my dear sister, Hadiza Bala Usman, the Special Advisor to the Mr. President on Policy Coordination, and I'm sure we are not surprised having heard from her why the President saw it fit to put her in that position, following that excellent rendition and summary of initiatives and a civil society perspective. Having been one herself, maybe she still feels like one. And indeed, all the head of BudgIT and all the NGOs present here, good morning. I'm quite honored to join you here today, and especially being given the honor of launching this civil society efforts in transparency, accountability, and good governance in Nigeria, which has, the summary has been presented. And to also use the opportunity, even after Hadiza has spoken, but to just say three things that I would like also to share. That civil society organizations are important to governance. And secondly, they must not be presumptuous that everyone who is in government is on the opposite side of civil side thinking. It's a collaborative thought process. Governmental processes emanating from the Constitution involve a lot of equitable judgments. And when equitable judgments are involved, many views will emerge from how things could be done. Power is split and shared into different bodies in a democracy. And yes, maybe we may debate democracy, but that's what we have chosen. And it has its own opportunity cost. And some of what I have seen, especially when I interact with some civil society organizations, I think it is the limitations of how power is split within a democratic setting that is quite often the program. For example, I caught the last part of the presentation where a mention was made of constituency projects. And we have always think as constituency projects in the, no, sorry, not always, but a lot of people think of them in the negative. However, we have seen where budget shutdowns have taken place in some of the most advanced democracies in the world because of constituency projects. They may not be called that, but they are essentially pork barrel legislation where a senator or a House or representative member can say, "This, I won't sign up for this budget because it has nothing for my constituency," and they may not understand. So coming nearer home, members of the various legislative bodies, both at the national and state, and even at the local government level, councillors are elected by their constituencies as provided by the laws, and there are expectations consequential to such representation. You may debate it, maybe, and we may improve on it, maybe, but that's what the law says. That is how it is currently done. And such elected representative is, by law, have the right, and in fact, the last say on how government money is spent. Not many people are even aware that the last say, the person with the last say in the budget is the legislator, not the president, not his team. So if we recognize that this is what constitutional democracy imposes upon us, maybe by choice, but how do we make it better? Then maybe the civil society organizations can focus more energy in ensuring that the projects nominated by elected representatives of people are aligned with programs of government. And then two, they are such that the implementation can be monitored so that the civil society organizations or mechanisms that are put in place will ensure that those nominated projects are implemented for the benefit of all. And we can measure their appropriateness, or we can even lobby elected representatives to ensure that they nominate or they participate in the nomination of joint projects that will have more developmental projects. But again, the space, what has been done in the last few years had helped. Organizations like BudgIT have published so many materials that have enhanced the interrogation process and enhance the need to appreciate that democracy involves those opportunity costs, and the best way to make progress is to recognize them so that when we have discourses like this, we are not confronting the Constitution, but rather we are taking on what is there so that we can make it better. And I believe forums like this would always help. And though not invited to comment on it, but I'm sure the policy advisor on coordination to Mr. President have given you a rundown of how we believe the renewed hope agenda, and in particular, our President Asuwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his team are desirous of doing better. And we call upon you. In fact, you may recall, I thought she was going to say it, and it's better that she didn't say it, that it's me that said it. But I recall when Mr. President was signing the budget, he even made an invitation to everyone to participate because he gave a stern warning that those who will not even help us to achieve the objectives can choose to leave. And I believe civil society organizations should take that message on board and know that this is a clarion call for them to get more involved, as the policy advisor have said, to support the monitoring and evaluation of both priority areas and even performance of public officials. I thank you very much for inviting me, and once more, congratulations, and I'm honored to present this to the public. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, hold on, sir. I would like to invite, please, every one of us on the white seats, please let's join. All the joint body leaders, court leaders, please let's join. Dr. Waziri, Amara, Amzi, Olusegun Elemo, please let's join. Yeah. And I think we can all have a copy of the reports in our hands. I think that should be enough. Thank you very much, everyone. Over.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Honorable Minister. All right, so over the next couple of minutes, we'll be inviting some of the joint body leads, the cohort leads, to give a remark and a goodwill message on, the journey so far, some of the efforts and contributions that they have made. All right. Thank you. Thank you. A round of applause, everyone, for ourselves. Thank you for being here. Being here is enough. All right. Allow me to invite the Executive Director of Connected Development, Hamzat Lawal. He would be sharing in 2 minutes, precisely 2 minutes. He'll be giving us goodwill message on the journey, being part of the joint body. Media, please come. Okay, thank you. All right, a round of applause for Hamzat Lawal, the Executive Director of Connected Development. Thank you very much. In just 2 minutes, Hamzat, thank you. Please, let's keep clapping until he gets here.
Good morning, everyone. Please permit me to stand on the existing protocol. It was really refreshing to listen to our sister Hadiza Bala Usman. That was a brilliant keynote speech. I just wanted to say that trust is the most important ingredient as we continue to explore collaboration between government, civil society, and the media. I believe that we cannot work in isolation, and that's why Jumbo Deep Cohort has come together. And it has been a refreshing experience for the past 3 years. And just to say that each and every one of us have a role to play, but most importantly, we must ensure that citizens enjoy the dividends of democracy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hamzat Lawal. Hamzat is the Chief Executive Officer of Connected Development. And next on my list is the Executive Director of Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative, Olusegun Elemo. He would also be giving us, now they've brought it down for me, it's no longer 2 minutes, it's now 30 seconds. So in 30 seconds, 30 to 45 seconds, he'll be giving us his goodwill remark. A round of applause. Thank you.
Good morning to you all. Thank you very much. Just to say that much of what I would have said have been said already, and the presenter of the report, mentioned quite a number of things, going from the risks that are associated with our work, and a number of recommendations were offered. But the only thing I want to say is that the theme of this fair and exhibition, talking about reforming governance, for social accountability, and cultivating people's power, is to say that if we must indeed reform governance, it has to be about those little policy changes that occur as a result of the small, medium, and the large-scale civil society. Civil society work indeed is not constrained by all part of civil society. And I just want to use this medium to continue to encourage us to be part of that work that civil society does, so that we can indeed continue to contribute to those shifts that occur in policy and by extension, reforming governance. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Olusegun Elemo. And we'll be taking the Director, Agora Policy Advisory, Waziri Aido, next, the powerhouse of knowledge himself. Please, a round of applause as he comes on. He's laughing, he already knows. Thank you. He has a panel session next, so don't Don't worry, you will feed off of him.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I want to thank everybody in the Joint Body Cohort and Mercator Foundation and BudgIT for putting this event together. This is very timely, and we can't do enough of this. Two things I want to say quickly, just following up on what the previous speaker said. The first thing is that what is civil society? Is that space between state and the private sector, right? And if you look at it, invariably we all belong to that space. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the work of accountability is the work for all of us. And maybe the last thing I want to say to also build on that is that there are no different sides. And it's good that we have people from the National Assembly, people from the executive side, and the rest of us here. It's one side, and that side is the side of Nigeria. And until we make Nigeria work for every one of us, we'll not be able to reap the benefit that we should. So on behalf of Agora Policy, I want to welcome you all again and thank Mercator, BudgIT, and all members of the Joint Body Cohort. Thank you very much.
All right. That round of applause sounded like just one person. You know, I know that we have not got into the item 7 of the agenda. We'll get there. But please, before we get there, I have been seeing some very wonderful fellows in our midst. Some few years ago, I was also in that uniform. And to be honest, you guys are in the right place, should in case you are thinking twice. But, I mean, you've been seated for a while. So, please, can you give yourself a round of applause? In the sun, in the rain. You know, but now you are inside the AC. You are not clapping. All right. Okay, now, thank you very much. Okay, so very quickly, I will be going straight to one of the activities for the day. But before I do that, I also want to properly recognize one of our distinguished guests, Rinsola Abiola, who is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Citizenship and Leadership. Please, a round of applause once again. Yes, thank you very much. Because if I didn't do that, I might get back to Lagos now and I'm not able to log into my laptop. So I have to properly, please. So panel section 1, mobilizing new governments for action. Where are the opportunities? And to handle this section for us is the executive director for where we are right now. In case you don't know the name of where we are in the Shehu Musaya Adwa Center, right? And we'll have Amara Wakba to do that for us. He's the executive director. Please, can you give him a round of applause for that? Okay, all right. I think my strike is getting plenty. Please, a round of applause till he gets up here. Thank you very much.
Okay, my agreement with the moderator here was that he was going to introduce the panelists, but apparently that agreement has not been honored. And just to make a small correction, I'm not the executive director here. The Yaradua Foundation has a director general who is Ms. Jacqueline Faris. I am the director for the Public Policy Initiative, which is part of the foundation. So it's my pleasure to be moderating this panel. And I would like to introduce some very distinguished people in the audience who will constitute this panel. At least the ones that are left. First, I will be inviting to the podium Mr. Suleiman Haruna, who is Deputy Director and Head of Press for the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation. He's representing the Federal Minister of Information and National Orientation. Please, a round of applause.
Secondly, I'll be recognizing and inviting to the podium Honorable Sunny Lawal, who is the Deputy Chair, House Committee on Civil Society and Development Matters. Furthermore, I'll be recognizing, and I wish to state that there's an important distinction between Senior Special Assistant and Special Assistant to the President. It's very important for accountability because the Senior Special Assistant we can hold accountable directly. But the Special Assistant, you have to hold their Oga accountable. Please welcome Risola Abiola, who is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Citizenship and Leadership. Finally, I would like to invite to the podium Mr. Waziri Adio. I was tempted to call him Dr. Waziri Adio because we've been at several engagements together and they've been referring to him as doctor. So maybe we should start recognizing his doctoral acumen. Mr. Waziri Adio, Executive Director of Agora Policy, Nigeria. So I'm just going to take my seat, and I hope everybody's got a microphone. I'm going to start with the representative of the Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Suleiman Haruna. First of all, what is your vision of, or how do you envision making social accountability more than just a buzzword, but actually something that is institutionalized within government in Nigeria?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I think I would like to start by saying a few words about the role that civil society has been playing in this country. I remember way back 2005, 2006, I was part of the conversation to start the Freedom of Information Bill at that time. I remember the role that Media Rights Agenda, a very strong civil society organization, played at that time. I have not heard from them recently, but I just want to make it a point that government and civil society have worked together for so long, not in adversarial terms, but on friendly terms, and that has helped in building the system over the years. I just wanted to make that point. Now, the civil society and the other citizens of this country, I think the key thing about what we expect is engagement. Citizens have become more aware that they have a right to demand their rights from government. And they do that, especially now with the availability of platforms, online platforms. Some are very, very vitriolic in the way they comment about government. Well, a few are very friendly, but most of the people, especially the young people like you, are very, very invective in the way they speak about government. This is expected because not much information gets across to Nigerians from government. So this government at the beginning thought that heat emanates from some level of hopelessness. People feel there are things that they can do, but nobody to explain to them why it is not being done. That is why this government decided that hopelessness should be renewed, should be reviewed, so that now we will have hope. People will begin to understand what government is doing. And if you remember what the SAP on policy coordination has said, government came up with 8 presidential priorities, 3 of which are to prepare the grounds, while 5 of which are project inclined. Now, the important thing is, how do we engage? It's easy to engage with the civil society and other stakeholders because they are structured. But it's difficult to engage with citizens directly. The civil society itself communicates more with government, but on the side of communicating with the citizens, a lot more needs to be done by the civil society organizations. And that is what I think that we should pay more attention to. There is need for civil society organizations and cohorts like the Joint Body to begin to attend to Nigerian citizens and talk to them. Since they understand government, they understand the achievements of government, there's need for them to support government in the advocacy. I have made it a point that they have supported government in growing systems for social accountability, to strengthen the power of the people, and even good governance. But there's need for the civil society to also embrace citizens, communicate with them, let them into what is going on in the system. The moment people believe that government is out there for them and is working for them, then I can assure you this country will move faster. Thank you.
Please, a round of applause. Civil society has a role and it's playing its role to work with government, to mobilize citizens, and to create that, to act as a border organization between government and citizens in terms of promoting social accountability. Now, my next question is to Honorable Sani Lawal. And that question is about also envisioning your role and the role of the National Assembly in enhancing social accountability mechanisms and working with civil society organizations and other development partners, and what steps should be taken to integrate these mechanisms into governance models. Thank you.
Well, good morning. The legislators have a vital role to play in enhancing accountability. Particularly, we are all there in the National Assembly to represent our people. We are there from various constituencies. The major problems we are facing in Nigeria in terms of accountability is the issue of working relationship. Like if I chip in from what the Honorable Minister said, we have the last say in the implementations of the budget, because it's the legislature go for an oversight to make sure that what they are appropriated to the MDS is funded and also utilize it into the appropriate way. But the issue is that in Nigerians normally, the legislator and the executive they work together, but the problem is that the legislator normally enter the work of the executive, and the executive normally used to enter the work of legislature. That's the problem we're facing. If the legislator do their work, they will go on oversight and checkmate the activities of executive. There is no interference between the executive work and the legislative. There must be accountability, because it's the legislative are going to oversight the activities of executive. If they do it well, there must be accountability in the process. That's the role that legislative played in terms of accountability in the governance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause. Now, I like the fact that you're talking about oversight functions and bringing citizens along in that process of making sure that the executive is faithful to the budget. My next question is to Risola. And Risola, in your experience, what governance approaches best promote transparency and accountability, and how can citizens and leaders work together to advance these?
Thank you very much. I would say that a participatory approach to governance is best for transparency and accountability. And that's in the sense of ensuring that citizens adequately actively participate in all processes to do with governance, beyond just casting our vote on election day, electing our leaders who then go on to appoint others. It's also important that citizens are able to contribute to how decisions are made, and they're able to participate in the implementation of those decisions, and they're also able to monitor and evaluate those decisions and give feedback to government, because that's also very essential as well for transparency, for accountability, for being able to actually deliver on good governance and meet the expectations of the people. It's very important for citizens and those in positions of authority to work together, because the feedback mechanism is very important. We must be sure that as people in government, whether elected or appointed, the actions that are taken, decisions that are made, policies that are being implemented actually meet with the expectations of the people, and they meet up with the yearnings of the people. So it's very key that citizens understand that their continued participation in the process is key, and for government especially, there should be avenues that actually allow citizens to participate. Beyond just informing them of decisions that need to be made, it's important that citizens are carried along, as we like to say in Nigeria, at every process of the decision making, and that their views are adequately accommodated when policies are being designed.
Thank you. A round of applause for her. So encouraging citizen participation, ensuring that citizens are carried along in the typical Nigerian expression when government decisions are being made. So my next question is to my Egbon Waziri Adio. In your experience, and your experience includes all the work that you've done as a journalist, also as an executive secretary for NAITI, what's the best approach? What are the approaches you've seen that work and could work in the context of Nigeria to make social accountability and transparency a norm?
Okay, thank you very much. I will build on two things. One is my understanding of social accountability, and also the cultural aspect, which you also mentioned, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. My understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that social accountability is not just the accountability you have in government, or the accountability that you have on election day in terms of, the right that you have to elect those who govern you, but the formal and informal mechanisms for citizens to hold those in power to account, right? So that is key, So, and how do we ensure that that becomes a culture, right? And to also interrogate whether we have a culture that actually supports that. So the first thing I want to say is to look at it from a framework that I find very appealing these days, is to look at demand and supply, right? In most instances, we speak about government people should do this, right? They should supply this because they are duty bearers, they are custodian of the Commonwealth and all of that. So they have a responsibility. They are our agents, actually. We are the principal, right? So we focus so much on insisting on transparency. Government has to, let us know what they are doing. They have to give account. We don't focus as much on the demand side, right? So when government has made these things available, what do we make of them? Let me give a few examples. And I'm glad that the Minister of Budget was here, and through the work that BudgIT and others have done over time, they've improved on, how the transparency of our budget, So if you go to the website of the Budget Office today, you see the signed 2024 Appropriation Act, 2,050 pages. You also see the budget of the government-owned enterprises that has been disclosed for the first time, 282 pages. And also we have a major government agency, NNPC Limited, that published its audited financial statement for 2022, 111 pages. So we're asking government, disclose, and they are disclosing. What are we doing with that? Beyond just the sensational, and occasional coverage that you see in the media, beyond just the almost like superficial treatment that you even in civil society, we have, ton of information out there, right? And what do we do with it? If you look at the budget of so the question now is not just about whether government is disclosing or not, is what are we doing as citizens to use that information that government is disclosing to hold government to account? And, I salute the work that BudgIT, PLSI, Code, and others are doing in terms of, following the money, doing the audit, making the budget, understandable and all of that, But we're talking about the budget and the expenditure and the processes. What about what gets into the budget? How do those reflect the priorities of the people? She said something about participatory governance, right? Participatory governance is very important because we need to be part of government, right? We need to make sure that our what's it called, our priorities are reflected in how government, allocates resources. But, it shouldn't be at the end when who determines what goes into the budget? Who determines how that aligns with the priorities of the people? So the point I'm trying to make is that we need to concentrate. Yes, they need to do more on the demand side, or on the supply side. Why I say I find this framework very useful is that basic economics, whatever is not consistently demanded will not be supplied. And even if they continue to supply this stuff, we have information in plain sight. Please don't take my word for it. There's a government agency that is going to spend 50 billion naira, 50 billion naira on staff welfare. And it's just a one-line item. The information is on the website. So there are other things, I want to say, but that is the first thing. The second thing, and I'll stop here because I don't want to monopolize this. The second thing I want to mention is that, it's good to, social accountability shouldn't just be on the issue of bad behavior. They didn't follow process, they have stolen money. All those things are quite important. Corruption is very, very important. Tracking corruption and ensuring that there are consequences for bad behavior is very important. But it's not just about corruption, as important as it is, right? The emphasis on social accountability should be about good governance. Yes, corruption can impede good governance, but there are also some other things. People can just make bad decisions. People can make suboptimal decisions in allocating resources. They've not stolen any money, but they are not making decisions. They are not making wise use of the resources of the, of the country. So, and for us to be able to, on both sides, we need to ensure that we have the culture that enables us to be able to play our role very well. The citizens have to be capacitated. They have to have the capacity and the awareness that, see, this is a responsibility that they have to undertake. And, the government itself, needs to be responsive. So it's not just so you need capacitated citizens and responsive, state for you to have social accountability that will make sense. I will stop here for now.
Thank you. Please, a round of applause. See why they call him doctor. Now, this time around, I will reverse the order of the questions. So I would still go back to you, Waziri. And this time around, because you've given us the definition of social accountability, I'd like you to give us a bit of a vision of what social accountability looks like when it is working. Like, what does success look like? Nigeria has a culture of social accountability. What would it look like? Give examples. And what will we see? What are the things, the tangible indices that we can see to show that, okay, this shows social accountability is working?
Okay, what it will look like, what success will look like is that not just civil society, not just the media, not just yourself, myself, ourselves, trying to hold government to account, right? That you have citizens across the board, not just in Abuja, not just in state capitals, right? You have citizens who would have that realization that it's not just that these are our resources. We have a responsibility to demand accountability and to receive accountability, right? So that is what success will look like. But before you get there, there are certain issues we need to dispense with. Because at the end of the day, I mentioned something, we can be focusing on bad behavior, but we can also be looking at good performance. I think, good performance will be like a more useful prism. If you have good performance, it also means that definitely you eliminate some bad behaviors, right? But do we have a universal definition of good performance? Okay, scratch that. Do we have a national definition of what good performance is in government? Or in kind of, being in custody of public resources? Does it mean in my locality, for example, let's say in my town, city, or my village, does it mean provision of good roads, good schools, good dispensaries and hospitals and all of that? Or does it mean somebody being able to come to my aid when I'm in need? Does it mean, somebody whose house is open, that I say, he's a people's person, you can always walk in his house? Does it mean it's a place where I can get some hot meal of amala? Right? So those are the how do we define what is good performance from people who are, duty bearers? I think that is something that we need to, and, without trying to complicate this, this is something that many scholars have looked at, It goes back to how do we conceive the public service? How do we conceive, government in our own society, right? Richard Joseph talks about, conceiving service as a prebend. You work in government, you seek election so that you'll be able to take care of yourself and people close to you by religion, by ethnicity, by filial obligation, and all of that, right? Or people who are just your friends, people you went to school with, and all of that. So if that is our overall definition of what service should be, then it's twisted. You cannot get a different outcome. And if our definition of public service is that this is a place where you go to help yourself, what you see as corruption, going back to corruption, what you see as corruption in some other domains is not seen as corruption here. So I can go there and hire people from my community and my friends, and nobody sees anything wrong with that. So until you begin to tackle all those issues, about those foundational issues, because at the end of the day, what we're looking at is that we're looking at behavior and things that people do, but underneath them, there are some cultural norms. There are some cultural beliefs that we need to really interrogate, we need to work on. And until we address all those things, that desired state that you ask me, that success that you ask me about, we're not going together. So this is a normative problem, and we also need a normative approach to it for people to see that, no, it shouldn't be about you giving me money to pay school fees, to pay for exam, to settle my hospital bills, or for you to provide food for me, or for you to give me FaceTime and all of that. No, it's about you have been given a job, and you should do the job in a way that would be of benefit to the collective, not to me. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you. A round of applause for him. Now, Risola, I know that, first of all, you've talked about participation, citizen participation, and participation involves an aspect of closing gaps, bringing people together and closing gaps of both information and engagement. But also on the other side, technology plays a role in this, or it can play a role. And we see, and a lot of commentary has been made about the negative role that technology tools and, social media, new technologies play in commentary about our governance in Nigeria. But let's look at what positive roles do you think that technology and digital platforms can play in transforming the landscape of governance and civic engagement?
So as it is, I would say that technology is playing a very big role when it comes to citizens' engagement already. And I'll make a very quick example with earlier last year when the government proposed palliative measures after the removal of fuel subsidies. And the reaction from Nigerians, really influenced the new direction that the government took, which I think for me showed that citizens are ready to voice their opinion, and we also have a government that is ready to listen, and that's why those modifications were made. So when it comes to technological advancement especially, we'll see that for young people especially, the internet space has been very key to learning about their civic responsibilities, civic duties. Technology has helped a lot with how we monitor activities of government. We have access to information and agencies in a way that we never really had prior to now. And like Dr. Waziri said, it's something we should all strive to take advantage of. The signed copy of the appropriation bill, the budget, is in circulation because, again, due to technological advancements, it's a document that we can all share, that we can look through, and we actually have something to hold agencies of government to with regards to what has been approved for them, even though it's not been cash backed yet, but we can actually track their performance against what to expect in that document. And with digital transformation, when it comes to voting, agencies like BudgIT, agencies like Code, so many agencies across so many organizations in the civil society space actually leverage on technology to be able to get their job done. So, and we have a lot of young people who are coming up with solutions targeted at the civic space when it comes to civic engagement and governance to enable us better play our role as citizens and to enable government better fulfill that responsibility of being accountable to us. Even INEC is leveraging a lot on digital tools. So there's quite a lot of work that is being done, a lot of gaps that are being plugged with digital innovation. But then there is still a lot of work that needs to be done, and there is still so much more that the government can do to take advantage of these tools provided by the internet, by the digital space, to ensure that the citizens are better engaged and citizens also have the opportunity to participate much more actively in governance processes, especially leveraging on the major advantage of the digital space, which is comfort, which is accessibility, and then, of course, again, youth engagement particularly.
Thank you. Round of applause, please. Next question to Honorable Sani Lawal. Social accountability requires collaboration. And I think even the joint body cohort is an example of that, one tree does not make a forest. Now, what are the challenges that you see and what are the opportunities, or how can we resolve these challenges of different actors from different sectors like civil society, government, private sector, working together to promote good governance and accountability and empowering the voice of citizens?
Well, the public and private sector and civil society, they have a lot to play to enhancing the accountability, transparency, and good governance. When we take example with public sector, that is the government itself, the government must have to bring out the new policies that enhancing both the sectors, private sector and even the civil societies. Because civil societies play a good role in terms of enhancing or empowering the citizens. They are the ones who always keep in touch with citizens and also relate with the government. They are always stay there on the interests on the citizens. They are there to protect the interests of citizens. And then normally civil societies help government and enforcing the policy implementation. Then the private sector, normally in the developed countries, private sectors play a role in their economy. They always, normally young people like us, we are looking work in the private sector and in the public sector. They help a lot in enhancing the economy in the states. But government, particularly, we as legislators, we are there for people. We have to bring out the good laws that enhance the life of our people. Because we are there for them, we have to work for them. We normally work together with the civil society because they help us a lot. Normally, they help us with new policies, and what we are doing there, we are there for them to make sure that any good policy they brought to us, we try to put it into law for the betterment of our people. So collaboration with this three sectors is very important in terms of transparency and accountability in terms of good governance. Thank you.
Thank you. A round of applause for him. I appreciate the explanation of, the discussion around co-creation of policies and laws between public, private, and civil society, especially that being critical to encouraging a culture of social accountability. My next question is to Suleiman Haruna, and I'd like you to share an example of how citizen feedback, in the process of engaging citizens, the feedback from citizens have been successfully integrated into policy making or service improvement. Any example that you can come up with? Thank you.
Well, excuse me. Let me take you back a little bit. This technology thing that we discussed. I remember immediately after the signing of the Freedom of Information Act, there were a lot of discussions about opaqueness of the government activities. And government, immediately the act was signed, said every MDA should come up with some proactive disclosure information on their websites. If you go to the website of the MDA, you'll see who the officials are, you'll see what the activities are, what the functions are, and you have grievances, you have a redress mechanism on that website. Now that really helped because many people just went to the websites to get adequate information about every MDA that they have interest in. And if they've been offended one way or the other by the activities of the MDA, they can contact the MDA through those portals that are provided, and then definitely action will be taken. So this has been there for more than 10 years. And I think beyond that, like the feedback you are talking about, the federal government has provision for information offices across the country. They have national orientation offices across the country. They have public complaints commissions across the country. But generally, you will realize that people don't usually go there to make any inquiries. They prefer to sit on the comfort of their homes, use their phones, and lay their complaints online. Not to anybody particularly, but to just let the world know that I have a problem. But since there are opportunities provided, I think that any information that you require from any MDA is available online these days. Like all this discussion that we have now about the budget, everything you need about the 2024 budget is there, it's available. All you need to do is just check it. If you feel your community is not represented, maybe you make a point that in the next few years, we begin to copy India and we do community budgeting. What they started doing is that every community will submit its own budget to the next level of government, to the community, to the local government, to the state government, and to the federal government. And at the end of the day, if your interest is not covered this year, maybe it will be covered next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Round of applause. Now, I'm going to open briefly for questions from the audience, but just one question per participant. So the way I'm going to do it is, if you have a question for Waziri Adio, please raise your hand. Huh? Doctor, yes. Now, yeah, so it's going to be one question for each of the panelists. And whoever does have a question means that, all that he has said has gone down well. So no issues or no additional clarification. So you have a question for Waziri Adio? Okay, please come up. Vincent. Who has a question for Risola? You do? Is it a question for Risola? No, question for Risola. Who has a question for Risola? The senior special assistant. You have a question for her. Okay, so you've adjusted your general question to be specific to her. Please come forward. It's a question, so you don't do any preamble. Eh?
The question.
Good. Just hold on. No, hang on. Before you ask your question, just hold on. Let us bring our what we call our panel of questioners. So please come forward. No. You can't have more than one question. It's democracy here. And then a question. If you have a question for Honorable Sani Lawal, please raise your hand. Okay. Sir, the man in white, yes, please. You have been chosen to join the panel of questioners. And finally, a question for Suleiman Haruna. Does anybody have a question? Okay, madam. Good. You are the first to shoot your hand up. So that's it. All right, so you introduce yourself, and then you ask your question. No preamble. Carry on. Just you say, my question is directed to Waziri, and here, here's my question.
Okay, good morning. My name is Menkiti Vincent. I work with Thoughts and Myths Advisory. I want to ask about citizens being capacitated. And my question is, you seem to have a perfect, picture about how we can get citizens to be capacitated enough to be able to hold government accountable. So how do we get there? Because you talked about it being a national something, doesn't have to be just Abuja. So how do we get to a point where citizens are united to keep government on their toes and be able to get government to be accountable to the people?
Thank you, Vincent. Please, have you noted his question? Thank you. All right, please introduce yourself. And
good morning. Good afternoon. My name is Doris Oswiwo from Youth of the Street Initiative. I'm their program manager. Okay, ma, I have a question for you. You said something concerning on digital space in regards to youth and all of that. My question is this. A lot of youths in this country lack information, the vital information. That's just the facts. And you talking about youth involvement and mentorship, if you check, you will know that most of our youths lack this information because of lack of mentorship programs for them. Because I use the coppers here as an example. There are some other states, they don't organize or have this kind of opportunity to be there.
So ask your question.
But now they are here to get this information. It's a kind of mentorship program for them, honestly speaking. But majority of our youth lack this opportunity. So how are we going to work in order to bring these youths, get them involved? Because there is a word that said, if you are not informed, automatically you are deformed. And honestly speaking, I would like our youths to be well equipped and mentored in all aspects. And I think holding government accountable is very important because most of them don't even know where and how to start in holding their government accountable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, you can pass the microphone to the next person. Now, panel of questioners. The question starts with what, why, how, where, when. So introduce yourself and then start with any of these words and end with a question mark. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Shadrach Daladi from Cedar Seed Foundation. My question is addressed to the honorable member. Honorable sir, you brought an analysis and, sorry.
What, where, how,
yes,
why,
yes.
when?
Without setting the little pace, he can't get the question I am about to ask. Mm-hmm. He said, for us to get it right, the private sector, the government and the civil society must organize and set the agenda together. We have seen situations whereby civil societies have taken brilliant policies, pushing them through the National Assembly have become too tedious. We have bills that spent more than a decade trying to have access and to win the acceptability of the National Assembly. You being in this very important panel, what assurance and how can we reflect on this past experience to better accepting policies and bills being pushed forward by the CSOs to see them translating into policies that can help the country? Thank you.
Thank you. Please. Have you noted his question, sir?
Good afternoon, everyone. My question is going to...
Your name, first,
sorry.
and your organization.
My name is Ambassador Mariam Ibrahim Usani,
yes.
an inclusive governance activist and a co-chair Nigerian Coalition on Youth, Peace and Security as Gender. That's Resolution 2250. Like I'm talking about the community budgeting, maybe constituency, to be able to...
Who are you directing your question to?
The representative of Honorable Minister of Ministry of Information.
Okay, good.
We talk about the maybe constituency budget. We've been finding it difficult, especially at the national level. In some states, it works. Like especially the state that I came from, Kano State, it works. We have a budget line for the citizen to gather the input across the board for local government. But coming out at the national level is finding it very difficult for us maybe to be able to track out the citizen interest or the citizen input we have given for the budget population. So how can we, is there any program that will be a design, a policy that will come that will be able to us to be tracked or to see, how can we able to see, in some cases the budget may be like interministerial, it may find it difficult to track either when you go to this ministry, you will see it is not there, it's not IPR or approved in their budget. Is there any programs or a policy that maybe the joint body or Ministry of Plan and Budget trying to simplify the civil society to the individual concerned citizens that has high interest to promote social accountability in Nigeria to be able to track or give input regarding to the constituency needs? Thank you.
Thank you. Did you understand the question? It's about how to track, Abi, and to invite input at the national level. Thank you. Okay, so we'll start with the representative of the minister, and then we'll go. So the person who got his question last will start first.
Thank you, Mariam. Please permit me to say one thing about the question on mentorship. I worked with the graduate internship scheme. I don't know whether you've heard of it. It was in the Ministry of Finance. I think we closed 2015. Our job was to engage graduates who are not employed, put them in establishments where they will get mentorship for 1 year, while government is paying them 30,000 naira every month. Just like this N-Power. Actually, N-Power was developed from that GIS program. What most employers said was that Nigerian graduates are not employable. That's what they said. But it's a government decision. We had to push graduates to them so that they become employable. Before 1 year, some of them got jobs in those same establishments. Some of them developed skills, and they moved to other establishments. So it's not a function of government only doing something. The graduates themselves need to wake up to the responsibility. You are a graduate. You are not supposed to sit down and wait for somebody to come and spoon feed you. I've told many of them, you cannot sit down for government to come and spoon. If you want to even know what government is doing, do we listen to the news? This is an honest question. Do young people listen to news? You say, well, I don't want to watch NTA. I don't want to do this, but you listen to radio. You listen to music. You listen to fun programs. How do you develop yourself if you don't know what's going on around you? I just wanted to make that comment. I know it's not for me, but I just thought I should say something. Now, the comment I made about community budgeting is not something that has started. It's a proposal. Discussions have gone on. I don't know, maybe the legislator will give us more insight because he's in the National Assembly. But I can assure you that when it starts, there will be inclusion. There will be inclusivity. People's ideas will be accepted at the local level. And then you will escalate those ideas to the local government level. From the local government, they can schedule, okay, 10 of the communities will take your ideas this year, another 10 will take next year, another 10 will take another year. Put them across the medium-term expenditure framework. And you realize that in a few years, you cover the requests from most of the communities. This is a dream. It hasn't started in Nigeria yet. I don't know where people have started the constituency level, but there's a constituency person here. I do believe that he has something to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, a round of applause. He's answered your question. No enthusiasm in the room. Okay, the next honorable.
Thank you very much. Let me say something concerning the issue of caution to the representative of Honorable Minister. The issue of these constituencies, we are 360 in number in the House of Representatives. We are all there for our constituencies. You know, the issue of National Assembly is very complex. We have only, we are there when the president submitted or presented his budget proposal to us. We look at it. In that constituency is the issue that always talking about that constituency project. Each and every one of us, we have only minimum talking for our constituencies. I'm telling you, during the budget processing, we are not in those that has a good committees, that they are work related to our constituencies. We used to go to them and lobby for our constituents, and we even go to the ministers during their budget process for them to put some project to us, to our constituencies. But the issue of National Assembly, it depends with the opportunity that member has there. Because to us committee, it matters. If you have good committee, particularly those committee that has a lot to do in you can do a lot to our people, to your people. But you know, the legislative have the government have the channels. We have the council and the local government, which they are legislator there. We have the state assembly members. also has the Senate and the House of Representatives. The first thing the constituency do, you have to make sure that you have good relationship with your members. We went to campaign to all our polling units. We know our problems. But the issue of the budget is the implementation. Normally, there is problem for when it comes into an implementation of the budget. That is where the problems comes normally. Thank you. Concerning the question related to me, the House of Representatives has different standing committees. My committee is related with the civil society and development partners. But any issue or any bills related to civil society issue is with us. We are going to relate with the civil society, discussion with them concerning the bill. We are going to follow the due process in the Legislative House. We have to lobby to our colleagues. We have so bills. We need your support on that bills. If the bills is not related to our committee, the House take that committee to the take that bill to the related committee to go through it up to the final level. You know, to pass the bills in the National Assembly is very difficult. You have to follow a lot of process. And the one of the good process is lobby. You have to lobby, go to the speaker, go to the other principal officers concerning the bill before bill move to the first level. Thank you.
Round of applause.
So, Ms. Doris, you asked me about how to better include young people in government accountability efforts and mentorship programs for young people. And I would want to start by reiterating something that the representative of the Honorable Minister for Information said. And it's that young people as well need to do a bit more with seeking out information. Information is readily available. I developed an interest in public service, governance. I think I was about 16, 17. At the time, I didn't really need people to mentor me for me to want to be interested in what government was up to, for me to feel like I was concerned about it. And that's something that also holds true for a lot of young people who are today serving in government or working in civil society. You don't necessarily need people to tell you, pay attention to this. As a young person, as a citizen, you should know that the decisions that are made affect your future a lot more than those who are currently in power. And as such, you have a duty to yourself and to your country to actually want to be updated about these things and to hold your leaders accountable. So it's very important that we have that mindset as young people. And then on our end, as a government, my office specifically, we have quite a number of programs lined up that are aimed at bringing governance and civic engagement and civic education closer to young people. My office is domiciled in the Ministry for Youth Development, and there's an agency called the Citizenship and Leadership Training Center, which I support to make their work, to make them more able to deliver on their mandate. And as the name suggests, the point of that agency is to make civic education training, leadership training, citizenship training a lot more accessible to young people. It's one of the oldest parastatals in the country. It was created in 1951. So what my office is working on at the moment, we're looking at legislative interventions that will strengthen that agency such that it is better able to deliver on its mandate of providing civic education to the generality of young Nigerians. Now, if we look at, I see a lot of youth corps members in this hall. I served in Enugu back in 2011. I finished 2012. And there are quite a number of other young people who have gone through the school system, or many even outside of the school system, who are not able to participate in NYSC. There's an NYSC orientation process. I don't know how many of you actually stayed through the orientation part during the camp, because I know many of us just went to the Mami Market that period. So what we're trying to do through my office is to strengthen that agency to be able to provide civic education training to millions and millions of young people, even those outside of the formal education system. So as a government, we're also aware of the fact that there needs to be a lot of work done to make civic education a lot more accessible to young people. But I would also like to emphasize the fact that young people, on our own as young people, we have to take charge of that responsibility. Information is available. we should do our part as well with seeking out the information that we need. As he rightly said, when it comes to entertainment, nobody tells young people, go and listen to the song that Ira Star, I hope I pronounced her name correctly, go and listen to her new song, or go and listen to Davido's verse on the remix of one song or something. I'm sorry, I'm not, or Nicki Minaj, I'm not very current on these things, but like young people know how to source for these things without necessarily being told. And we need to start thinking about governance and politics and how our nation is governed, especially our states as well. Because we also like to hold the president a lot, but we need to hold our governors the same way we are holding the president and ministers and legislators. We need to transfer that same level of interest and aggression, if you will, to those who are working for the citizens at the state level and sub-national levels as well. Thank you.
Please. Thank you very much. On a lighter note, let me say two things. I also served in Enugu, but I will mention the year so that you people will not have a wrong impression. And two, also building on that, what Risola said. You know, human mind is amazing. You know, it has infinite capacity. I was just telling him that Nicki Minaj released a diss track yesterday, Bigfoot, right? So you can know about all of that and still be interested in governance. I work on policy issues, and when I tell people about things going on in different spheres, they look amazed, and I say, "Why are you surprised?" Right? So the fact that you are young and certain things appeal to you does not mean that you shouldn't be interested in how your society is governed. And that interest shouldn't be just because you have a cell phone and you have data, just be ranting. It's good to rant, but which will take me back to the issue that I've been asked to address. But when you come to the table from a position of knowledge, you are operating at a different level. You are taking more seriously. And please, if the only thing you pick from what I'm going to say here, because I see a lot of core members there, is please take an active interest in the economics, in the politics, in the governance of your society. And be a major contributor to that, right? So that's just a bonus because I have the mic. Vincent asked me a question, right? Vincent, right? About how do we capacitate, how do we enhance the capacity of the citizens? I wish I have the answer. I'm just saying, and if you have the answer, then then we have solved all the problems, right? Maybe then we need to look for other problems to deal with. But the point I'm trying to make is that this is a very important condition, right? Making information available, having horizontal accountability, right? And all those things are very important. But until we get to a situation where citizens themselves, having people doing the kind of work that, all of you here do, very, very important. But how do we multiply that in a millionfold? How do we get to a stage where an average Joe, understands that it is their right, their responsibility to demand how their commonwealth is being administered? And how do we ensure that they have the capacity to do that job? So it's not just enough to say, let's publish information. How do people make sense of the information? Do they understand the process for engagement? So the work of that we do, and I'm saying we, I'm talking about our people in civil society and even our people in government, the donors and all of that, is that we need to, until we get to that situation where citizens can make effective demand, not just demand, effective demand for better governance. All those other things that we're doing, they are important, but they won't be enough. So part of the work that we need to do is to ensure that, we go into organizing mode. And some of this, is being done already. You see, BudgIT, they have tracker. they go to some community and they have meetings with them, they conscientize them, you see code, they have town hall meetings and all of that. How do we multiply that all over the country? And how do we take it from an episodic kind of thing to something that is like, just natural to us? So the point I'm trying to make is that, we need to devise ways. I don't have the answers, and there are different ways of doing this in different contexts, right? But this is a work that has to be done. That is the point I'm trying to make. Whether we want citizens to just serve as watchdogs, or want citizens to co-create, to co-govern, participatory governance, community budgeting, Porto Alegre, made participatory budgeting very popular in Brazil, right? Kerala in India. In fact, so many places. By the way, there are places in this country where this has also been piloted. When Dr. Fayemi was governor of Ekiti State the first time, I don't know whether I did it the second time, they had a situation where all the wards, they will go to them. What are your priorities? What do you want us to put in the budget? Right? And he did that as a scholar going to government. Right? What's the end result? They said they want stomach infrastructure. Right? So this is somebody that gave them the opportunity to be part of governance. And that happened not to be the priority of the people. They wanted somebody who will be eating corn with them and somebody who will give them something. So that goes back to that point I made again, that I made earlier. Do we have a universal, national definition of what good performance is? And how does that align with, enabling good governance? Thank you very much.
All right, just to make a connection between what Waziri Adio said and Risola said in respect to Vincent's question, is to say that, maybe some of the work in capacitating citizens will come from the initiatives around civic education for the grassroots that you talked about. And I think that's important to point out. So we're about to close the panel. So I'm just going to give all the panelists one last sentence to make. So that's your closing sentence. And I will start with the representative of the minister. One sentence, and that's your charge to the people here in the room.
Thank you. What I see.
Microphone.
I see beautiful faces of young people. Wake up to the fact that you were born through a struggle. Remember, there are 20 million sperm cells. You beat every one of them, and you came out. Why should you wait for someone to drive you? Why don't you try to drive yourself? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. What I want to urge here is we politicians, we need our people's support, particularly when it comes into our responsibility. Normally our electorate, they doesn't differentiate between legislator and executive. They are always looking for us to bring project to them while we are here to represent them, to legislate. So that's the issue that we need you, elite, to help us, particularly to our people that are in extreme village. Let them know the difference between us a lot in terms of governance. If we are here to legislate, let the executive go and do their own responsibility. We are there to checkmate them, to oversight them, to make sure that everything is done as it is. That's my words. Thank you.
In closing, I would like to encourage all young people to understand that this country belongs to us. We have to understand that young people make up a very large percentage of Nigeria's population. The current administration has done well with regards to getting a lot of young people into appointive positions especially. But we also need to do a lot as young people to engage government. If you're not satisfied about something, there are so many avenues for communication. As I keep saying, there's a lot of information out there. There is hardly any MDA, any agency, any government official who is not online or social media, or you can contact them through their website. At every opportunity, please try to arm yourself with information and aim to communicate properly through established channels with government officials. They are there to serve you. You have to understand, yes, culturally, it's a bit awkward getting used to, but you need to understand that as a citizen, you hold the ultimate power in a democracy, and every single person serving in government is there to serve you. So I need us as young people to assert more of that power and to encourage other young people who are not interested in governance, make them understand why they have to be. So that's the charge I'm going to leave you with today. Thank you.
Okay, my charge is to the young and to the old, because we need everybody. The first thing I want to say is that social accountability is a very useful mechanism that will allow us to tackle so many things. And one of them, it actually deepens democracy, takes us back to that original concept of democracy, for people to be able to hold their representatives to account, right? The second thing is also it will allow people to have input into the priorities of government. So it's also an opportunity to deepen human development. Right? So this is something that we should take seriously, and it's something that can help us, but it needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of work. It's not just that, okay, we should be sticking to all those buzzwords, transparency, accountability, participatory governance, and all those things. There's a lot of work. It doesn't mean because you have embraced this, then this has to happen. Then the last thing is that we should have a different country. But if we need a different country, we should be ready to work for it. It will not happen by accident. It will only happen when all of us, young, old, male, female, in between, whatever it is, we all do our part. It's an all of society kind of thing. We need people in civil society. We need people in government. We need people in the private sector. For us to get there, we all need to come together and see how we all play our part. Sometimes some of those parts might be conflicting, but it's part of the game. Some people need to do their own job. Some people need to put the heat on them to make sure that they do their job properly. So let's all live here and resolve that a different country is possible only if we do our part. We're all committed to doing our part.
Please, a resounding round of applause. So I would like to thank the distinguished members of this parliament for sharing their, panel. I was looking at Honorable and saying that distinguished members of this panel for sharing their knowledge and insights with us and the audience. And my final words to us is, I don't know who came up with this slogan for the year, which is no grief for anybody. However, in this no grief for anybody, make sure that you are disagreeing with knowledge and capacity. That your disagreement is not based on ignorance and selfishness, but that your disagreement is based on knowledge and some of the things that have been shared with you today. And secondly, that in that disagreement that you disagree unless the people that you are trying to disagree with are joining body with you to promote social accountability and good governance in Nigeria. Please thank my panel for me. And we will now proceed to take a picture together, and then we'll descend from the podium. Thank you.
Do they get to their seats? Let us clap for them now. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, right about now, we'll be going into the second panel section. And I also have some few information to share with us. While walking into the hall today, you will realize that we had some booths out there, and basically what those booths are doing, or what they are meant to do, is to also allow us have some level of information about what civil societies are doing, number one. Number two, the civil society organizations who have come together to be part of this cohort, which we are all calling the Joint Body Cohort today. And number three, also for you to be able to interact with the members of those civil society organizations and as core members. I mean, people who have the interest in joining this line of work that we do, basically, non-governmental and non-profit. You might also want to ask questions around how can you be part of this interesting work that we do. And for every member of the audience who is also part of one organization or other, there's an opportunity for us to collaborate. There's an opportunity for us to join body, right? And to also allow us give some level of credence to the work that we do. Because I believe, and we always believe, that when we go together, we get so much influence, and that we are also able to give so much pressure to the message that we are passing out there, and we get the attention that we want. All right. To anchor the next panel section, we have the Strategy and Growth analyst for BudgIT Foundation, who goes by the name Mr. Joseph Amenao. And please, I know that we might be tempted to start leaving the hall in droves and in trinkles, but I want us to please pay attention. The title of the panel section is also as important as the first one we had. This panel section is tagged Transitioning Report, Recommendations to Realities. All the recommendations that we've read, how do we see ourselves in ensuring that those report recommendations come to realities? Over to you, Mr. Joseph. A round of applause for him, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I see that people are trying to leave the hall. I'll encourage you all to please stay back and let's do this panel. I think over the years, Iyano has found a way to pronounce my surname, which is still difficult for a number of people, but I think he got around it today. Amenao. So let me call the panelists to the podium. I would like to call on Olusegun Elemo, the Executive Director, Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative. Zainab Abdurrashid, Program Officer, Rapper. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. I would also like to call Omolara Akinyeye, if I'm getting it right, Deputy Executive Director, Policy and Legislative Advocacy Center, PLAC. He was here sometime, right? Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you very much. I'd also like to call the Global President, Network of Women with Disabilities, Lois Alter, to join us on the stage. apologies that our podium is not completely friendly. We're hoping that the Majority Leader, House of Representatives, National Assembly, Professor Julius Ihovere, would also join us at some point. But I think we can begin with the panel conversation. Please put your hands together for our panelists. Thank you so very much. In the course of trying to put this panel together and identifying our panelists, one of the things we did say was that we would also share the report with our panelists. But we also recognized that it was important not to overburden our panelists with readings. The document is almost like 180 pages or thereabout. And sometimes when you get these documents on your phone and it's over 100 pages, the inclination is that you'll probably read it later. But we sent an executive summary to our panelists to look at it. One of the things we're interested in is to see if there are additional reviews you have based on the recommendations that have been made, if there are things you would like to add to it before we go to the substantive questions that we shared with you. Because the core of this panel is, we've titled it Transitioning Report Recommendations to Realities, the Path for Civic Actors and Citizens. But one of the key things we're also looking at is to consider how best we can cultivate people's power in all this. So I'd like to get your 1 minute impressions of the recommendations of the report, and if there are additional things you would love to see as recommendations. I'll start with Olusegun Alemo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, the moderator. So for me, yeah, I looked at the executive summary of the report. You know, we used to have panels where we have just one, lady in between men. So it's moved from just having one lady between men, now having one man between ladies. So I think it's a good thing. No, we are not counting, you are not a panelist. So, but it's beautiful to see that, the panel, we have, women who are, well represented. Just to say that, yeah, I've looked at the executive summary, and I would say that it largely, the recommendations and the issues thrown up in the report largely covers the ecosystem. As you will agree with me that there are many civil society organizations, and I mentioned during that short remark I gave earlier, that civil society is not that structural civil society that you see. Everybody is actually a part of that ecosystem. What we saw from the report, and I'm sure maybe you may have also had a glimpse of the executive summary, is that so much of the issues and recommendations thrown up largely covers that ecosystem. But of particular interest to me are those risks that are associated with the work that we do. And I just hope that going forward, we'll be able to mitigate many of those risks and sustain our impact in communities, and possibly encourage more people to actively participate in their own domains, whatever structural elements they belong to in the civil society ecosystem, so that you can actively participate. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Zainab, your thoughts, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here and also to be part of the joint body cohort has put together the report. And I'm glad to say that based on the survey that was done, the recommendations were in line with the captured data from the survey respondents. Aside that, I would want to emphasize on the issue of security in our society, because for any meaningful development to happen and for everyone's voice to be heard and heard effectively, I think the issue of security, which is one of the major issues on the front burner in Nigeria today, has to really be looked into by the government. And that, I think, should be re-emphasized as well, because at the end of it all, are women and girls, being affected by insurgency and the likes. And so for any transformational or transition of reports and policies to action to happen, it has to be in a safe environment. And so I really want to see a better Nigeria where security is of paramount importance and where every person, boy, woman, girl, person with disability is carried along, leaving no one behind. And so the issue of inclusion as well needs to be more emphasized so that everyone's issues are brought on board for the government to address in line with the survey findings as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Molara, your thoughts?
Good afternoon, everyone. And I've read through the executive summary that was sent, and while I was reading through, just as the other two panelists had said, I think it covers broadly the ecosystem, as he said, of the civil society sector where we're all working. And just to say that, one of the things I thought when I was reading it was the laws. How do we interrogate the laws? It's important that we look at that as well, because sometimes, what we've talked about digitalization in the first technology in the first section at that panel briefing earlier. And one of the things we do with it is not to use it to our benefit. We use it in the opposite way. And when I mean interrogation of the law, okay, there are so many, young people here. Sometimes you see something, because someone has said, okay, this thing is bad. You go on social media and, you talk about it in that negative way. But, we don't take time to actually interrogate what the law is. And I was looking at something recently, and it's about accountability as well. And it was about budget, and I was like, what else it is about accountability, apart from, when we talk about budget issues, when we talk about money issues, what other things can we, really be accountable for? I'm not even talking of our behavior or, behavioral change or anything. I'm just talking in terms of you just knowing what is and the true nature of that thing. It's part of accountability as well, because you can't hold someone accountable if you don't understand the extent of that particular issue. You're just going to be like every other person, talking the way others are talking, without knowledge, without information. And we all agree that information is key, that knowledge is power. And the power you have to actually engage someone is the extent of the knowledge that you have. So I think that, it is quite good. When I read recommendation 6 that talked about cost of governance, I'm relating that to our laws now. I will give you an example. The special seats bill that the women in Nigeria pushed in the Night Assembly, a lot of people felt that, a lot of people were not coming from an informed position. That was why they didn't understand it. But one of the things we did in my organization was that when that bill first came up, we looked inwards, what is the cost of governance? And we did an analysis on that, got an expert to actually do that. So anytime we're talking to the National Assembly, we're talking from an informed position. So you can't say to me that because I'm bringing 30 more women, it will increase the cost of governance. I already have the analysis. I'm giving it to you, and I'm telling you where you are saving money from, and you can take care of this. So that's what I mean by, looking at the laws as well. And sometimes, we just don't throw them away and say, oh, this is not going to work. Have we analyzed it? Have we looked at it in a way that it will benefit the society? So that's my first take on this.
So much. Lois, let's have your take.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lois Auta. I'm from the Network of Women with Disabilities. Yes, what stood out for me in the recommendations was inclusive budgeting. When we have people in mind, when everyone is carried along, whether you are young, whether you are old, whether you are a person with disability, whether you are a woman, whether you are black, you are yellow, what color you are being carried along as a citizen of this country through inclusive budgeting is going to be economic empowerment. People will be happy that, yes, they have rights to education, they have access to health, they have access to the economy, they have access to many things that they want when the budget is inclusive. And I really like the word inclusive. Some people will say gender budgeting. Some will say disability budgeting. But this one word, inclusive, made it a duty that all the key actors, is it from the National Assembly, is it from the presidency, federal government, subnational government, every level of government should make sure that they reserve budget for everyone. Everyone. And I like the word everyone. Nobody is excluded. Nobody is discriminated against. Nobody is underrepresented. Nobody is marginalized. Or nobody is stigmatized. So when we have inclusive budgeting, we will be able to hold government accountable. When money was disbursed, we know the figures, we know how it is implemented, and we follow up with everything government is doing that will ensure that inclusive budgeting is achieved and prioritized. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Just again to push a bit into the substantive questions around cultivating people's power. Zainab, I know clearly that a lot of the work you do focuses on the challenges and the difficulties that women face in being part and parcel of decision-making processes. One of the things I would like you to expatiate more or to provide more insights on is how is the organization working around this, enabling more underrepresented people to have their voices heard in decision-making processes?
Thank you for that question. RAPA, we work a lot around inclusion of women and girls in spaces for change, especially governance. First of all, most of what we do revolves around improving and building their capacities to be able to demand accountability for their rights from duty bearers, because we realize that knowing their rights is one, and then being able to demand for those rights and at the right quarters would make it an effective demand to be considered in the second place. And then, aside that, we help to amplify the voices of women who are doing this. because when we engage them in the course of capacity enhancement, capacity building, they gain knowledge which they begin to apply in their various constituencies to be able to engage relevant duty bearers, be they legislators or even local government chairmen at their various levels. Because we believe governance is for everyone. Governance is not all about just the men at the top. We want every citizen of Nigeria to be involved in this. And so, aside that, we also engage in legislative advocacy to ensure that bills that are related to gender issues, which leaves no one behind, basically, are being passed, and then citizens are better off for it. Because we believe governance is not effective enough if it doesn't translate to the welfare, improvement in the welfare of citizens, especially women and girls. Our focus is women and girls because we realize they are most disproportionately affected by the cost of bad governance. Bad governance translates to women being, girls being out of school, women not being able to access basic amenities like healthcare, other institutional facilities that they should be ordinarily enjoying as citizens of the country. And so our work is around ensuring that this marginalized population of women and girls are part of the decision making, looking at inclusion and their participation in governance. Governance is for you and I. It's not just for the governing bodies. It's for every citizen and all the government officials, either elected or appointed. So in whatever capacity we may find ourselves as citizens of Nigeria, we believe that we should all come together in terms of participating in governance. And in doing that, women need to be on the decision-making table for their issues to be captured and also budgeted for. Because there's no implementation of an activity or of a cost that has not been captured in the national or state or local level budget for implementation. When you have an issue on ground, if it finds a line in the budget provisions, then you have hope that yes, it will be implemented and then it will translate to the welfare, better welfare for people, especially women and girls. But if that's not done, then we're nowhere to be found. And that's why we're advocating for more women representation aside inclusion, representation, and their full participation. And in fully participating, their voices need to be heard and amplified to be able to, capture their issues as it concerns them in terms of various women's issues that only women know where the shoe pinches. Because you can't deliberate on things that the constituencies affected are not part of the deliberations that led to the creation of maybe the bills or the laws. So we need to have women's voices captured in all of the bills and the laws that get passed in Nigeria. And in so doing, we also engage the legislature. The legislature, we believe, can only pass the laws that, would translate to better welfare for people. And in so doing, we focus on we focus with the gender lens. Issues that pertain to women and girls, persons with disabilities specifically, to make sure that their issues are on the front burner, and then the legislature also sees reason to push for such bills and their passage on the floor of the national, state, and local state assemblies as well. And so aside passing on the national, we help to domesticate by advocating at state levels, for their passage at state levels for domestication of such laws, and try to build capacities at those levels for citizens to understand their rights in those bills, see themselves in it, because sustainability of such ventures, interventions as well, do not translate if the citizens cannot drive the change they want to see. We believe so much in the power of the people that when they have the capacity to push for their own issues, they're able to demand accountability and they're able to drive their own change. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Lara, just again to to again center on the kind of work you do and to ride on Zainab's contributions. I know that legislative work and the work you do with the National Assembly has different dimensions to it. But it would be good to understand how you connect with grassroots movements, for instance, with regards to their participation in actual lawmaking or the presentations of bills or the compositions of bills. We would like to get an insight into that. Because sometimes I imagine young people, for instance, what opportunities exist for them to be part of lawmaking and investing their time in that. So if, for instance, there's a bill that is focusing on young people, how do you, ordinary young people, core members, for instance, is there a way they can be pulled into those types of conversations? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And building up on the work that we do in the National Assembly, most of the time, what people call inclusive at that level is public hearings. You know, when you do public hearings and you bring people to come make contributions. So sometimes we do invite people from at the subnational level, you know, across the country to participate in those public hearings. And there are times as well, you know, through policy briefs. Sometimes we do policy briefs. There are people who are concerned about certain things going on in the National Assembly. They do write to us as well, and we try as much as possible to push those things forward to the relevant committees. And another thing that we do is we have this program that we do yearly. It's an annual program. It's called the Legislative Internship Program. And we take a youth, one person from each state of the country, 36, or sometimes we do have up to 40 of them. There are some years where it's highly competitive. We have very good CVs, applications. So what we do is we put them in the National Assembly for 10 weeks. And what do? They are deployed to committees of the National Assembly based on their discipline. So if you're a lawyer, you go to relevant committees that deal in that aspect. You know, if you're a medical doctor, maybe health committee and all of that. So what you do is sort of an internship with the clerks of the committee, and sometimes you have audience with the chairman of the committee, and you take part in the activities of the committee, and you are able to actually stay in the gallery to watch proceedings live from the National Assembly. So that's another way of including young people into the work that we do. It's a yearly internship. It happens most of the time after Easter and sometimes at the end of the year, depending on the calendar of the National Assembly. So we do all of that. I've mentioned public hearing as well. I've mentioned policy briefs as well. And another thing we do in terms of technology is use the plaque bills track. We call that site plaque bills track. So every bill from the National Assembly, as we are sitting here now, the proceedings for today, it's on the plaque website. You know, we put it out. And the reason we do that, it's not for our own benefit, it's for Nigerians to be informed. And there are so many laws on the plaque bills track that we put there, not just because we want to put them there, but because we want people to be aware. And sometimes we do analysis of those laws. We don't just put them there. We analyze them. Sometimes they're in infographs. And the reason we do that as well is to break it down for the ordinary citizen to understand it. So if you understand this, you're better informed. You can engage properly. But if you don't understand it, then it means that you can't engage properly. I've seen people in the line of work that we do, you know, and young people, and when they meet some of the senators or honorary members, and they are so enamored of seeing them, oh, I see you on TV and all of that. And I'm like, well, that's your opportunity to say something about what the man said or what he's doing. Don't just be enamored by seeing them, you know. Try and bring up an issue that might be of interest, because sometimes we might think that they don't listen. But you as a young person, if you're talking to someone, he feels that, oh, you're coming from an informed position. He begins to think in his heart, maybe we should really do something about this. He might not on his own be able to do something about it, but bringing it up on the floor of the house, it's a way of telling Nigerians that, okay, someone had brought this up, then people begin to talk about it, and before you know it goes viral. Now you have viral videos of people getting up and saying things. So that's how information passes around. So those are the kind of things, that we do with that, so that people know where it is. I'll give you an example, and that was why I mentioned earlier about law. Or some of us, interrogating what the law is. Look at the student loan act now, the one that they want to start implementing. I bet you if we take a poll around the room, I know that so many people have not read it, but people are talking about it. Have we interrogated it? No. Perhaps those that are actually looking at it are maybe people that say, oh, we are policymakers, looking at it for their own benefit or for the work that they do. So, and it's quite important, that we look at these things. And another example, the ones that actually affect civil society that all of us are up in arms about now, was the CAMA, the Companies and Allied Matters Act. When it was in the National Assembly, agreed, there was no public hearing on that. But it was as if by the time we started doing the analysis, boom, it had passed. And the only thing we are left with now is to start shouting and praying for an amendment to it, to suit us. So that's why it's important that we interrogate the laws. Don't say, oh, it's climate they're talking about, it's none of my business. It affects you in one way or the other. So we should always interrogate the law. And exactly that's what we do, to always, make people understand the workings of the National Assembly and make even young people to begin to interrogate what the laws are. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I know that sometimes public officials, elected officials, National Assembly members, they now have some type of celebrity status. And so when young people see them, the first thing that comes to mind is to do a picture or whatever with such persons. But like you said, it's important that we leverage on such opportunities to at least ask them some cogent questions or put something straight to them. But the thing is for young people also to back that with sufficient knowledge of what is happening. Thank you so much. Lois, I know that there are peculiarities and challenges with persons living with disabilities. The question here will be, what model do you think best work for organizing communities like yours to ensure that the needs of your own specific communities or similar communities are met by government and either at the federal level and subnational level? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph. But before I go on, the best terminology to use is persons with disabilities, which is recognized by United Nations Convention on the Right of Persons with Disabilities. So the global terminology is persons with disabilities. Yes, you asked a very important question on inclusivity of my constituency. You see, we have different types of models, I just mentioned. It is sad that Nigeria is still operating on the charity model of disability inclusion. Most of our people will call persons with disabilities and start sharing rice, sometimes used clothes, and other charity things. Out of pity, they see the disability first before the person, instead of seeing the person first before the guide cane, before the hearing aid, before the wheelchair, or glasses, or whatever assistive device a person with disability is using. Article 29 of United Nations Convention on the Right of Persons with Disabilities has given us the right to participate actively in governance structures. But this right is not given to us. Section 30 of Nigerian Disability Act also enshrined that persons with disabilities should be prioritized in terms of electoral processes and governance. 5% has been asked that in every opportunity should be reserved specifically for citizens with disabilities. But there's nothing to write home about. Nominations of ministers came. No person with disability. Approval. No person with disability. Other parastatals, agencies, their appointment came without person with disability from the federal government. Yes, Abba Issa was appointed in November as Senior Special Assistant to the President on Disability Matters. But he was asked to work with National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. We need to do more of this. We want to see disability policy in our institutions, in our organizations. We want to see gender equality and social inclusion, officer or advisor or whatever you call it, in your various organizations. And when you are employing, how many percentage have you reserved for graduates with disabilities? We have graduates. We have the capacity. Is it Dr. Patrick, Dr. Irene Patrick? Is it Grace Jerry? Is it Susan Kelechi? Is it Rose Daniel? We have many women with PhDs, persons with disabilities. So what is it? What is it? What is it that we cannot do? We have the potentials, the talent, the gifts that is in us. But we lack. House of Assembly in Jigawa State is a person with disability, or is a man. But for women with disabilities, no. We can be governors, we can be senators, we can even be the president of this country if the right attitude is given to us. We need attitudinal barrier to be removed from Nigeria so that persons with disabilities will be included. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for your very deep insights on this. Shegun, you and I come a long way from the conversations at the OCO office at that time. You know, there's a thing that we've built around the whole concept of people's power. So the question would be, in the course of your work, which I know is very delicate, the work you do around audits and corruption, can you give us a very good example of how, using people's power, you've been able to impact governance policy or shifting governance policy, or to see some type of different outcomes? We would like to know that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Joseph. And by the way, I can pronounce your surname as well. Amenahon. Thank you. Well, with regards to policy shift, and I'll give example of the work that we are doing at PLSI. But just to say that, for me, policy shifts I categorized in 3 stages, in 3 forms. The first, you can say the low policy shift, then you have the medium policy shifts, and then you have the high policy shifts. For the low policy shifts, these are not well pronounced, slightly, or let's say silent policy changes that occur at institutional levels. And they help, upscale institutional efficiency. They are very silent. There are changes that occur there. You don't hear of them in the social media. Nobody hears about it. But there are changes that are happening at institutional levels. So these are low policy shifts. Like I said, they are silent. And they are often catalyzed by research, by data, by advocacy. When those advocacy efforts are initiated, nobody knows, or very few people, very insignificant number, are aware. So that's why they are silent. Or you then realize that those researches, those data engagement, those advocacy efforts result in changes. And I'll give you instance. In about 6 weeks, thereabout, I think on March 14th, we'll fix the date. We're going to present our subnational audit efficacy index for 2023. Not to give you a peek into what will come out at that presentation, I would say that there are 2 states, one in the northern region, one in the southern region. One of those 2 states moved upward 10%. Moved upward 10%. We did not change our methodology. It's the same methodology we adopted last year that we adopted for this year's assessment. Another of those 2 states moved upward 28%. Like I said, we didn't change the methodology. So what changed? Policy changes. Actors behaved, in a different way. Actors responded to our recommendations. So, but did you hear about it in the media? No. Those are silent policy shifts. Like I said, they are catalyzed by data, research, and advocacy. The next one is medium. This part, they are slightly pronounced. They impact on institutional productivity and credibility. And they are often, catalyzed by media support, investigation, and that investigation can be private, it could be organized investigation. And the best example to give for that, and like I said, they are slightly pronounced, is the certificate racketeering that came up recently with Togo and Benin Republic. I'm sure you heard about it. Now, you then realize that government responded and suspended evaluating certificates from those locations, isn't it? Those are medium policy shifts, slightly pronounced, but they also result in policy changes. Now, like I said, what catalyzed it? Investigation. So there was an investigative reporter who went to the field to bring evidence. And then there was media support, Then there's the high policy shift. This one is the biggest of all. It often associates with political benefits. And many times, the integrity and credibility of public administrators are on the line. And because it's the biggest, the thing that puts the credibility and integrity of public administrators on the line is because it affects quite a number of people. It's the biggest of all. So, the catalyst at this stage could be passive or active protests. Of course, very loud media support. And some other extraordinary factors. And a quick example you can see in this regard is the recent crisis that affected the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. After so much row, did the president act or did he not act? No, I'm throwing the question to you. Did the president act? Suspended the minister, suspended the program, and called for investigation of things that have happened in that ministry. So you can see there are silent policy changes that occur within institutions. I've given you the catalyst factors. There are also medium policy changes that are affecting productivity and credibility of institutions. I've also given you catalyst factors. Then there is the big one, which are the high policy changes that are, of course, associated. They have electoral benefits. Public administrators need to make political statements with those things so that their credibility and integrity stays at stake. Those are changes at different levels. And I think those are good examples of reforms.
Thank you so very much. This whole thing about people's power, it's very deep, but it's also very simple. So recently, some individual went to the Lekki conservation area and realized that some of the things there were not safe for humans to. So that led to an immediate shutdown of the area. Likely because, again, it shows that there is power in using your own capacity as an individual, using your phones, running social media commentaries on forcing policies to change. I would like us to pause a bit and take questions from the audience. So, like we did in the first panel, you'll indicate by raising your hands the questions you want to ask and to whom this question will be directed to. So please, if you have questions, let me have your hands up. Hello? If you have questions for the panelists, let's have your hands up. I know those who asked questions in the first panel are a bit shy. I can see Vincent is already agitated. He probably has loads of questions, but he's wondering if you will allow him to ask questions again. My coppers, please. I need to have your hands raised. Hello? Please, you can come forward. Mr. Copper. Mr. White. Please don't let the men dominate this conversation. Okay. Hello? All ladies in the house, please. Questions? We'll take these two questions for now. Please, your name, then direct your question and to which of the panelists you want the questions to be addressed.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Ibrahim Sani, and my question is directed to the person that talks more about National Assembly aspect. I heard she talks about issue of public hearing, which they are using as a tool to bridge the gap between the members and the community. My question is more of a concern, there is requirement for each member to have community office, like constituency office at their various constituencies. But unfortunately, I noticed, like from my constituency, that those offices are more like just the physical presence without the necessary use. Like you hardly see the member coming down to the office, sitting down to engage with his constituents, to hear from them their opinions and everything. So I don't know if there is any provision that the National Assembly made in which citizens can, like, maybe force their representatives to come down there and engage them, or maybe if that concept of public hearing will be brought down to the affected constituency, so that it will be done directly with the people instead of holding it here in Abuja, where it's very few people that can be able to come over and give out their opinion. Thank you very much.
My name is Yaya Adamu. My question is directly, let me see, close to what he has just stated. As in what he say, the question is, let me say, close to what I want to say. But how can this type of initiative be, let me say, cited in our states? Because it is not everyone that have privilege to come to Abuja to attend programs like this, whereby it will, let me say, give a voice for people at not only our constituency, but also at the local level, whereby you see many people don't even know that, let me say, they have an opportunity to speak to our representative on that. Because when you go for advocacy and telling people that government supposed to do this, government supposed to do that, like a case study of my constituency, the member representing my constituency was given 100 million for youth empowerment, but he didn't even empower even one youth.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Ifeanyi Anya, representing TAC Africa. My question goes to Hajia Zainab. I appreciate the fact that the organization strengthens the voice of the vulnerable and indigent girl child. My question is relating to the recent humanitarian ministry. We do hear about the issue of the social register. My concern is, how confident are you about the social register with your advocacy? Because I understand there are a lot of women and girl child who might not have been captured in that register. So what effort is the organization doing with respect to the indices? And what are the indices by which the social register defines people who should be captured in that register? Because there are some communities, I believe, that ought to be captured, and some of them are not in that social register. So looking at this discussion or this panel, we are looking at reforming governance to enhance social accountability. The people have the power. Therefore, I would want you to address this particular question. And then for the woman, okay, one question.
My name is Abdullahi Ali Ibrahim, BudgIT member and active citizen. My question to Mrs. Lewis, this is as a research organization at the BudgIT. You are part of this community. Please, are you working on the research based on the people who have disability to have access to having a social security that they have, that they are doing in their hand, especially limbs can walk, eyes can see. So how can you now make your research to be suited, that is, the nation or to give an advice to the nation if you have that access? Based on research, that is, how can you now do it? Or are you working on it that so that inclusiveness, so many inclusive citizen can have a social security? Are you doing something so that
Thank you so very much. Thank you. I think these questions are very deep questions. About Lois, I would like you to start on the last question. I think it's likely around how are you pushing the advocacy to ensure inclusion for the communities you represent. Thank you.
Thank you very much for asking that very important question. Yes, I don't think there is a research done on social security for persons with disabilities or those employed by government and other institutions. Article 24 of United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities has kicked against discrimination on persons with disabilities who are educated and they are capable to work in any institution and they are being deprived of. So on this question, on the statistics of staffs with disabilities from the federal to the state and to the local government level, you know, one major thing is that attitudinal barrier is already stopping many people from employing persons with disabilities. I know many of my friends that attended interview. By the time they get into the interview hall, a question asked, why are you here? Why did you apply for the job knowing that you are either physically challenged or blind or person with albinism or whatever form of disability you have? So we need to work on our attitudes towards persons with disabilities. We need attitudinal reform from the family unit to the environment that we live in. At workplaces, we need a disability employment policy. I know of NNPC that they have a policy. If you serve there as a person with disability, you are automatically retained. I don't know whether it's still practiced up till now because they are no longer accepting corpers. So they work directly with NDA, National Directorate for Employment. So we have a lot of work to do, and that's why I like this joint body cohort. It's about collaboration, it's about partnership. We need every hand to be on deck to ensure inclusivity in every aspect, in every sector. Is it jobs, employment opportunities, training opportunities, economic empowerment, whatever sector it is, we want that 5% reservation in everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Laura?
Thank you. And the question to me was about public hearing. We can't bring everybody to Abuja. You can't bring everybody to the national level. There are 3 levels of the work that the National Assembly does, and that's lawmaking. There are 3 core functions: lawmaking, oversight, and representation. And one of the things that is our governance deficit in Nigeria is that part of its representation. How well are we being represented? And that's where that comes from, how do we now take what is at the national level? How do we step it down to the subnational level? And I believe that's what you want to know, that, okay, even if we bring everybody to Abuja, if this word that we've been bouncing around all day, accountability, is not there, we're not going to achieve anything. Accountability, like I said earlier, is not about money. It goes beyond that. Someone having a constituency office, it's part of accountability, a way of reaching out to you people. You reporting at the constituency office and then taking up the issues at the national level is part of accountability as well. Are they accountable to you? Are you accountable as well in your different diverse walks of, life, the things that you do on your daily basis? But how do you do that? Sometimes the reason why we bring just people across the country is that those people are representatives of organizations. If those organizations are represented, they can go back to the subnational level and, step down some of those things. Or when they are coming for such public hearings, they can take, what is it called now? There's something we do at national level, is to call civil society and say, civil society position on something. So they can take some sort of positions at the subnational level to now bring and say, this is what we think on this particular issue. So that's a way of organizing at the local level to come to the national level and, make your concerns known to those who are able to actually deal with those concerns. And another thing is, when they have such public hearings, there are advertisements. What their rule says is that they should advertise at least 2 weeks before the public hearing, so that the citizens actually bring about some of these reforms, the things that we say, not even they saying there's a law before National Assembly, but because of the things that we do, then we can begin to create reforms. I remember when, what was it? When we were talking about police reforms, before even NSAT and all those things, a lot of people felt, what is it? Police reforms, yes. Not many Nigerians knew that we were using a police act that was like 78 years old at that time. That law was more than archaic, if there's another word that you can use. But immediately the police act was amended and SARS came up. So we now saw the gaps in some of the things that people were now talking about. And that circles back to what I said earlier, interrogate the law. Don't just always say that, this one is, you're up in arms, you don't know what it's talking about. Let's interrogate it. Budget, they are doing something. That's tracking of the budget. If you mention, I know legislators that, when we want to have a program and you say you want to bring budgets, they say, no, those people, they will come and tell me about my constituency, whatever. It's part of accountability as well, because you know that it's going to affect you in some way because it affects them. So you can actually contribute in diverse ways. And those constituency offices, let me just say it, it's not the first person that spoke. I like what you said, that, they are just physical offices. You know what they say to us when we ask them about it? They're like, okay, even if I go there, what people ask me is, my wife has given birth, I need money. I want to bury this person. I want to do this. I want to do that. Well, people see you as the frontline person, someone we can run to that can show us the path of solution to something. Maybe that's why they run to you for all that. But if the right thing is being done, like a legislator was telling me that, the people said they don't have lights in his constituency. He went and initiated NEPA at that time. It was still NEPA at that time, to bring transformer. When they brought transformer, they came to his house and said, please, NEPA said they don't have money to fix this thing. We want you to bring money to fix it. After they fix it, they said they should build something around it to protect it. The man now said, what am I? Am I Father Christmas? I have to do everything. I said, well, they are not asking you to bring the money out of your pocket. but they see you as a person of influence that can influence those things. So that's what we should use them for, as persons of influence that can influence change for us, rather than in other things that we do. But honestly, you can take part in public hearings diverse ways. Like I said, there are times when you see those adverts, there are email addresses there, or the clerks of committees. So you can send in your own opinions or whatever to those emails. And believe me, trust the process. They look at those things. As a matter of maybe political way, they might not be able to do certain things, but they look at them. And you can never be too sure. One day, one of the things you send might just work magic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Zainab, the social register palaver.
Before I go on to the National Social Register issue raised, I would like to also chip in a bit on engaging with constituency members as regards passing laws at the national level. Not everyone can come, and that's why we have civil society organizations engaging with the citizens at the grassroots level. They serve as a bridge between the people and the government. CSOs engaging grassroots members are the ones that should, at those levels, really collate what the needs of the people there are and try as much as possible to input it into the policy initiatives that make hearing. And even on the floor of the public hearing venue, it should be at that point that the voices of the grassroots members are put, in front, at the front burner for accent. So going back to the initial question posed to me on the National Social Register, I would like to say since its launch around 2016, there has been this challenge of inadequate data. And that's why the functionality of the National Social Register in meeting the needs of vulnerable Nigerians is still a question to be, looked into. We need adequate data. And for crying out loud, in Nigeria, a lot of institutions do not work with, correct or adequate data. And until we get this right, we'll still be, robbing the issues on NBC, the National Bureau of Statistics, to, engage them effectively in trying grassroots population migrating to Abuja because they want to be part of a social register. The government owes it to the citizens to be able to capture the information as it pertains to every citizen at every level. The government needs to engage, create structures and platforms where, with personnel to be able to go down to the grassroots, engage these vulnerable people, get their information, document it properly, and then, aside documentation, that information needs to be out there, because capturing information of vulnerable population who don't even know where their information is being taken to or what it serves as will still not have their needs met. And so in so doing, I think there's a lot of gap to be filled around engaging the grassroots populace effectively, the vulnerable people, getting their information captured rightfully, and then putting out the right data for adequate resources to be allocated in terms of budget and funding from the government.
Thank you so very much. Please, a round of applause for our panelists' responses. We're winding down, and Lois, I'd like you to give us a few final words, but I understand that you're about to leave.
Yes, I have another meeting I need to run. Yeah, so my final word is, as we leave this hall this afternoon, we should have a mindset on inclusivity for everyone. I don't want to call any category of people, no, for everyone. And also, are you a thinker? Are you a funder or an implementer? You must be one, or even two, or the three. If you are not, then you have not started fulfilling your purpose yet on earth. So you must be a thinker or an implementer or a funder. Which one are you? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lois, just before you leave, let's take a panel photo before you leave. Thank you so much, Lois. Please, let's put our hands together for her. As Lois is leaving, we'd also like the rest of our panelists to make their final comments. In the course of trying to also put this panel together, we had thought about some cross-cutting questions. And I would like you to use those cross-cutting questions as your final takeout. So Shagun, I know the first panel did talk a lot about technology and digital platforms in transforming the landscape of governance and civic engagement. With the kind of work you do, which is around audits, how do you envision new developments in technology, especially new forms of AI, for instance, in helping us to further, again, make audit-related, public audit-related work much more accessible to ordinary people and possibly expand the opportunities for young people to also be actively involved? We'll use that as your closing comment.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much. I think basically the role that technology plays is very crucial. First, in making information available for civic engagement, and in helping to curate, indeed, how the civil society, which includes, of course, ordinary citizens, should engage with policy actors. But with the very simplified technology, initiatives, I think civil society, including us, have been able to avail both organized and unorganized civil society with information that is very necessary to advancing the subject of our discussion. But with recent development in the technology space, including the involvement of artificial intelligence, we really can begin to look at how this impacts on both the demand side and the supply side of the equation. So, for instance, how does artificial intelligence help auditors to better do their work in a way that advances accountability? And how does artificial intelligence also enable citizens and civil society actors to better leverage audit evidence and every other evidence out there to then, advance the cause of accountability. At PLSI, we are thinking about that very strongly, and we're looking at how we can responsibly utilize and leverage these technology tools to enhance that part of the discussion. Well, I think finally is to say that, like I mentioned earlier, everybody belongs to the civil society, whether organized or unorganized. And there was a question that was asked earlier about how, capacitating citizens to better, demand accountability. I think what can be done is that everybody belongs to a constituency. And when I mean a constituency, you belong to a structure. And we've always advocated that there is no power, it's people's power, so there is no person's power. Or let me say the person's power is very, very limited. But when it comes to people, a group of people, a collection of people, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you begin to see the enormity of that power. So what I will encourage you, as you leave this hall, identify that constituency that you belong, and it could be a social constituency, it could be a religious constituency, whatever constituency you belong. Ensure that that constituency is alive to its civic responsibility. Ensure that that constituency is properly informed. Ensure that that constituency has access to data and use all of these resources to engage. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Shegun. Zainab, we talk a lot about sustainability in the civil society space, but in terms of relating this to social accountability, what are the options to making this sustainable, and how will this even adapt to changing circumstances? Please use that as your part of your closing statements. Thank you.
So in terms of sustainability, we should be looking more to partnerships at every level, local, private, public, the media. We need to leverage on partnerships to be able to capture all the voices that are needed to sustain a particular focus. If we're speaking to partnership, we tend to, get to leverage on the strengths on all the parties involved. Everybody's voice from the grassroots to the national will be captured in the process. And in so doing, we're leaving no one behind. So my parting word will be, at every point you find yourself, be deliberate in looking towards inclusivity. Leave no one behind. Make sure that the issues pertaining to every gender is captured in your programming, in governance, and every other sector. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Lara, we come a long way with Situation Room 2011 and further down. But we've talked a lot about empowering citizens. Your parting words with regards to how does that really work with stakeholders' cohesion? Again, leveraging on the kind of work you do at Black. I would like to get your thoughts and use that as your closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, working with coalitions, the one that I'm very, very familiar with, that I know that we're directly involved with, is the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room. Working on elections, the electoral process as well, looking at how elections are conducted, legal frameworks, and all of those things. And like Shegun mentioned, find the constituency that you belong. And he rightly said it, that constituency is not your maybe your senatorial constituency or wherever you're living. What is that core value of a group that aligns with you, that resonates with you, that you can begin to work with? And even as an individual, what is that thing that agonizes you so much about Nigeria that you think you have alternatives to? You have the power in your hand, and that's technology. Begin to use it to build up voices that can eventually become a voice that speaks with influence. And that's it. Don't look at it as, I don't look at accountability so much in the light of a collective, but sometimes even as an individual as well. And you can begin to, movements are not made by just a group of people. It's an idea in someone's heart that that person brings out, and others say, yes, I believe in that. And they join them and they begin to make a change. So I think that, if you find that place where you think you belong and that idea that resonates with you, begin to support it. But support it, like I said earlier, from an informed position. What do you do with data? Don't just look at data and fly it in the air. Crunch it. Look at the gaps that it's creating. Look at the benefits it's creating and begin to engage from that perspective.
Thank you so very, very much. A round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so very much. Just to say that in the course of the panel session, Professor Julius Ihovari did send his regrets. There was supposed to be a sitting that he thought they were going to cancel it, but it still held. So he sends his regrets. In the course of also putting this program together, we did make it open for people to participate. And we got a lot of feedback from people that they were going to participate. There was a gentleman who did send us an email. His name is Henry Akwaji. His response was that, I shall be in attendance. However, I wouldn't just like to be a spectator because governance is very bad where I come from. There's never a local government administration close to the people. The business of government here is looting and nothing more. I would like to speak. I was expecting to see him today, but he's not here. But again, his statement again represents some of our concerns on how we aggregate and ensure that people's power is effective and can move things and change things in our country. So we're hoping that our conversation here, especially as it regards moving from just recommendations to realities, can become something that everyone who has participated in this meeting will be involved in. Again, I say thank you to our panelists, and please let's give them all a round of applause. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much.
We've come to the end of these panel sections, and what we'll be doing right now is just to ensure that the second part of today's event, every one of us are partaking of that. Like I mentioned earlier on, there is a booth out there which has names and organizations who are represented here today, part of the John Body cohort, and there's an opportunity for you to learn what they do. And like I mentioned earlier before this other panel started, as core members who also want to go into the line of this work, non-profit, civil society organizations, there's also an opportunity for you to also ask questions as towards what they do and how can you volunteer, how can you be part of the work that they do. And I've also been given the privilege to give the final remarks for today. I want to say thank you very much, first of all, to our founders, MacArthur Foundation, who has given us this opportunity to bring people together across Nigeria to learn what the Joint Body Cohort has done, and also to give the recommendations that we had from the work that has been done so far. Also to give a very good appreciation to the management of BudgIT, who has also given us the privilege to organize this, And also to every one of you in the hall, please can you give yourself a round of applause right now? If you are seated to this moment, you have done so well. Please give yourself a round of applause again. All right, thank you very much. We extend our sincere appreciation to you because without you, there is not going to be any event here today. I want to ensure that you have also gotten your food packs. That's number one. And number two, please go out there. If you have ushers, please, my panelists that just finished panel section now, please bring their food for them. I don't want to get back to the office and the door is locked. Thank you very much. All right. So thank you very much, everyone. Please go outside, network, take pictures, tweet at us. Our handle is BudgIT.ng, Facebook, BudgIT as well, YouTube, BudgIT as well. And also all the joint body cohort members, they all have their handles in their individual booths. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day ahead. God bless you.